What's up guys, this is your favorite fanfic YouTuber, the Fanfic Majesty, and welcome to another amazing video. You can follow me on Patreon for exclusive stories. 13 MP. Chapter 291. Inoue Orihime meet Kurosaki Ichigo. 2x please subscribe. Advertise here. But, Qian Ye can still feel that Zaelaporo's Reiatsu is coming. Of course Qian Ye knew that Zaelaporo at this time hadn't died yet. However, Qian Ye didn't, and he paid attention to Zaelaporo again. But Qian Ye glanced at Nilou, who was still sitting on the heights. Then he said, Nilou, let's go. At this time, Nilou was very happy after seeing Qian Ye being so powerful, and she responded, okay, brother Qian Ye. You are amazing, let's go. So Qian Ye took Nilou again and continued to go forward. Brother Qian Ye, where are we going now? Nilou asked. Nilou, this corridor seems to be coming to an end. However, we are not able to move on now. Because I have sensed 620 just now, your brother Kurosaki Ichigo's Reiatsu has become very small. Although he is not dead yet, he must be seriously injured. We are going to save him. Qian Ye sensed it. The place where Kurosaki Ichigo's Reiatsu disappeared, he rushed away with Nilou. Brother Qian Ye, I'm just about to invite you there. Because Kurosaki Ichigo, brother, is with Physique. If Kurosaki Ichigo's brother is seriously injured, my brother would like to thank him. I don't know what it will be like. Nilou also walked and said truthfully. But thanks for this, it came to Kurosaki Ichigo's side and looked at Kurosaki Ichigo very sadly. Of course I know that Kurosaki Ichigo was killed by Espada Arrancar, Ulquiorra, ranked 4th. But thank you there, crying loudly, Kurosaki Ichigo. You will be fine, CDEJ, right. You hurry up. Don't scare me, you can't leave me behind. However, the black hole on Kurosaki Ichigo's body is still braving the black-red mist. As for Kurosaki Ichigo, there is no anger at all. At this time, of course I also knew that he was just cheating. I also knew that Kurosaki Ichigo was about to die. At this moment, only a white light flashed by. Grimmjow appeared in front of Pei Xie. Thank you, too, was frightened and sat on the ground all of a sudden. He looked at Grimmjow there, but couldn't speak for a long time. Grimmjow didn't pay attention to the thanks, but released someone from the bag behind. This is a woman with long hair, but her hands are tied with rope. However, none of this stopped. The woman's eyes looked at Kurosaki Ichigo who was jumping on the ground. Let go of my hand, I'm going to save him. Grimmjow was just there, and with a wave of his hand, all the ropes in Inoue Orihime's hand had disappeared. Inoue Orihime quickly came to Kurosaki Ichigo's side and used her healing skills. At this time, Ulquiorra also came to the place where Inoue Orihime was detained. At this time, Ulziola saw 2 injured Arrancars lying on the ground. So, Urziola said angrily, who did it? It's the 6th blade, Grim. Ulziola heard it. It was Grimmjow's name. He didn't make a stay, but turned around and left. And Ulziola then came again, where Kurosaki Ichigo was injured. When Ulziola saw Grimmjow, looked at Inoue there, was there for Kurosaki Ichigo, healed. Ulziola looked at it again, and Grimmjow asked angrily, why do you want to do this? Healing someone I've defeated, what do you think? Grimmjow was there, but with a sullen expression, looking at Ulquiorra. There is one thing, it seems that you made a mistake, the person lying there who was hit hard by you, he is my prey. And you watched my prey and snatched him, shouldn't you give me an explanation? Ulquiorra looked at Grimmjow, but smiled coldly, as if he would rush over in the next second. At this time, Ulzio continued there and said, well, I don't care about this matter with you. However, that woman is Aizen Sōsuke. She taught me what to keep. She belongs to me. You should return her to me. Ulziola, okay, then you have to beat me first. Grimmjow also said as he rushed towards Ulziola. Ever since Grimmjow and Ulquiorra, these 2 espadas, started fighting in the nest, and no one accepted defeat. Now, although Grimmjow is 6th espada, and Ulquiorra, who is playing against him, is 4th. It's just that the strength of the 2 people doesn't feel too different. Grimmjow and Ulziola are 2 espadas, you come and I go in the air, not giving way to each other, regardless of the outcome. At this time, Inoue is using her double sky flying shield to heal Kurosaki Ichigo's injury. Chapter 292. 2 espadas nest fight 3x please subscribe. Advertise here. The reason why Grimmjow confronted Ulquiorra was to stop Ulquiorra. Because of Grimmjow, Ulzio was not allowed to interfere with Inoue's treatment of Kurosaki Ichigo. After Grimmjow lost to Kurosaki Ichigo last time, Grimmjow still has a sorrow in his heart. Grimmjow is a fighting madman and he is not allowed to lose to anyone. So this time, Grimmjow rescued Inoue and brought it here. The purpose is very simple, it is to let Kurosaki Ichigo, after recovering from his injury, have a good fight with him. At this time, Qian Ye was also coming here. Suddenly, Qian Ye felt that Reiatsu of Kurosaki Ichigo was beginning to recover, which also made Qian Ye suddenly feel a little strange. Who is this? Who saved Kurosaki Ichigo's life? Nilou saw Qian Ye and suddenly stopped and stood there. Nilou also looked at Qian Ye, and asked with some confusion, what's the matter? Brother Qian Ye. Why did you stop? Aren't we going to save Kurosaki Ichigo? Qian Ye smiled there, and then said, Kurosaki Ichigo is fine. I have sensed that his Reiatsu has recovered. Then who saved Kurosaki Ichigo? Nailu asked again. Nilu, I don't know about this. Only when I go there will I know it. Brother Qian Ye, what do you mean, where are we going? Nailu asked some knowingly, and some wished to do so. Qian Ye nodded there, and then said, Nailu, if you don't want to go, I can take you to another place, and you will wait for me in a safe place. However, Nailu said there, Brother Qian Ye, I don't want to. Where do you go? Where do I go? You don't want to leave me behind. Qian Ye also froze for a moment, and then said, Don't worry. Nailu, I won't leave you behind. Then let's go. So Qian Ye grabbed Nailu, and then quickly ran in the direction of Kurosaki Ichigo. Quote. At this time, Grimmjow and Ulquiorra were too. During the battle, Grimmjow threw a bandit of negation to Ulquiorra's side. Because of Ulquiorra, there is no defense, because in Hueco Mundo, the use of negation bandits is not allowed. And now Grimmjow doesn't care about these at all. In order to achieve his goal, Grimmjow can do anything he wants to do. Since Grimmjow, he was able to save Inoue, of course he wouldn't mind, using the bandit of negation to lock Ulquiorra. However, Ulquiorra's Reiatsu was transferred to another dimension and could only be detained for about 2 hours. Grimmjow was confident, because he knew that with 2 hours, it would be enough. Grimmjow, after finishing this matter, he also looked back and looked at Kurosaki Ichigo standing there. At this moment Kurosaki Ichigo is also looking at Grimmjow coldly. I don't care about you, for what reason I came here, I also want to take you back. Do you understand? But Kurosaki Ichigo said this to Inoue behind him. For flowers, Inoue was there, and he was taken aback. However, just as Inoue was about to speak, I saw Kurosaki Ichigo. Before Inoue or Hime could speak, he jumped up. Grimmjow, I know, don't you want to fight me? Come on, just let you know, I'm great. Grimmjow was there, and grinned. It was what I couldn't ask for. The reason I came here is for this purpose. Kurosaki Ichigo, what I was thinking at this time was that I must defeat the Grimmjow in front of me. Point 0. Only in this way can Kurosaki Ichigo have enough strength to protect Inoue or Hime. However, Grimmjow in front of him is also very powerful. For this, Kurosaki Ichigo, naturally, is also very clear. If it wasn't for Ulquiorra's intervention last time, I still don't know who loses and who wins. At this time, Kurosaki Ichigo, also immediately, rushed to Grimmjow. And Grimmjow, too, did not hesitate to come to Kurosaki Ichigo. Ever since, the two got together like that. However, after the two were right, Kurosaki Ichigo was punched by Grimmjow. When Grimmjow continued to attack Kurosaki Ichigo, a cloud of black mist suddenly flashed. Kurosaki Ichigo's zero pressure bounced Grimmjow back. Ha 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 ha. Looking at him, Kurosaki Ichigo, Grimmjow, who had already changed their appearance, were there, laughing. That's right, in this case, it's a bit interesting to fight. And Kurosaki Ichigo, the broadsword at this moment, has become a long sword. Where? Chapter 293. Kurosaki Ichigo fights again with Grimmjow. 1x please subscribe. Advertise here. Kurosaki Ichigo was there, staring at Grimmjow. Of course Kurosaki Ichigo also knows that only with his Bankai, Grimmjow can't be beaten. As a result, Kurosaki Ichigo's left hand grabbed his face. I saw a mask slowly gathered on Kurosaki Ichigo's face. When the mask was completed, Kurosaki Ichigo's Reiatsu also increased significantly. Looking at Kurosaki Ichigo, Grimmjow was there, but he was laughing wildly. For Grimmjow, the stronger the opponent, the more excited he will be on June 20th. To defeat Kurosaki Ichigo, who once defeated himself, can prove that one's own strength lies. Thus, Grimmjow, a fighting madman, fought fiercely with Kurosaki Ichigo who had been hollowed there. Grimmjow fought Kurosaki Ichigo for a while. I also felt the power of Kurosaki Ichigo's Reiatsu. Therefore, Grimmjow also decided to go all out. Therefore, Grimmjow also made a single cut and cut back after Kurosaki Ichigo. He also stood there immediately and began to sing. Crack, Leopard King. I saw a white mist flashed by. Grimmjow's body began to change. Grimmjow's hair also began to turn blue, and it fell behind him. Grimmjow's arms formed 2 rows of swords. And the hand also turned into a blue paw. The legs have also become the appearance of leopard legs. Grimmjow, these changes in appearance have doubled his speed and strength. I saw that Grimmjow flashed away and came to Kurosaki Ichigo. It's too late, it's fast. Grimmjow raised his blue paws and patted Kurosaki Ichigo. And Kurosaki Ichigo also quickly raised his long knife to resist. However, Grimmjow's power was too great, but suddenly, Kurosaki Ichigo was photographed again. Kurosaki Ichigo, who fell on the ground, stood there, looking at Grimmjow coldly. Of course Kurosaki Ichigo knows that even if he is hollow, his strength and speed are still inferior to Grimmjow. However, Kurosaki Ichigo won't, so he gave up easily. Because Kurosaki Ichigo, the purpose of coming here is to rescue Inoue or Hime. However, now Inoue is right next to him. Kurosaki Ichigo is also determined, he must show his full strength. Kurosaki Ichigo must let him know that he can protect him. In this way, Inoue Orihime will be able to walk with oneself with peace of mind. Otherwise, Orihime will always worry about myself and dare not leave here. Worried and afraid all day, those 10 knives will kill all her friends and relatives. Kurosaki Ichigo now knows it, and the reason why he agreed to come here was because he was worried about their safety. For this reason, Inoue Orihime decided to take it all by himself. Of course, Kurosaki Ichigo can't tolerate this, and it's also intolerable. Let Inoue, one person, protect everyone. This is simply Kurosaki Ichigo, a totally unacceptable fact. Kurosaki Ichigo looked at Grimmjow in front of him, the way his weapon was liberated, and his eyes also began to become firmer. Just when Grimmjow waved his blue paws again and grabbed Kurosaki Ichigo. Kurosaki Ichigo was there, but grabbed Grimmjow's paw. Kurosaki Ichigo also slashed away. Grimmjow dodged backwards, but still did not completely dodge. In an instant, Kurosaki Ichigo's long knife hit his chest. Grimmjow, who was injured, looked a little surprised, standing there, and Kurosaki Ichigo showed firm eyes. Ha 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 ha. Grimmjow laughed suddenly. It's really great. It's because of your eyes that I have to fight with you. Your unwilling look is exactly what I need. At this moment, Grimmjow was talking, and disappeared in the original position again. When Grimmjow appeared again, Leopard Claw had already arrived, in front of Kurosaki Ichigo. Kurosaki Ichigo also hurriedly avoided, but Kurosaki Ichigo still couldn't. Avoiding the attack of Leopard Claws, Kurosaki Ichigo was hit in the shoulder. Kurosaki Ichigo, who fell down, was also seriously injured. 4.9. Kurosaki Ichigo was on the ground at this time, looking at Inoue not far away. But at this moment, Inoue's eyes revealed fear. Kurosaki Ichigo has never dared to face Inoue Orihime. Because Kurosaki Ichigo also knew that, in fact, there was something in Inoue's heart that made her very scared. That's when Inoue Orihime's elder brother became imaginary. That time, the elder brother who almost didn't kill him turned into a virtual appearance. This is the matter, it can be said that it has been buried deep in Inoue's heart. Chapter 294. Kurosaki Ichigo has been hit hard again. 2x please subscribe. Advertise here. Kurosaki Ichigo also knew that he was wearing a mask. When Inoue saw him like this, he would definitely let her evoke her bad memories. Therefore, Kurosaki Ichigo has always been just, facing Inoue with his back. And this time, after Kurosaki Ichigo was defeated and landed on the ground, he finally looked up at Inoue who was standing on the high platform. I said, where are you looking? When fighting with me, you were so careless. Having arrived at Kurosaki Ichigo, Grimmjow next to him, while speaking, relentlessly slapped a paw at Kurosaki Ichigo, who was already injured. Kurosaki Ichigo had no choice but to quickly raise the knife in his hand and began to resist. However, Kurosaki Ichigo was still shot by Grimmjow, a paw. Seeing that Kurosaki Ichigo, who had been hollow, was still not the one who had liberated the weapon, Grimmjow's opponent, Pei next to him, was also very worried there. Thank you for looking at Inoue, who is still silent, shouting loudly, you, aren't you his friend? He came here to fight desperately for you. He is like this, why are you? Why don't you speak? Why don't you cheer for him? At this time, Inoue Orihime was also shocked. Until then, I went to Orihime and found out that I was always there, watching Kurosaki Ichigo's battle, but he didn't give Kurosaki Ichigo once. What the hell is this for? Inoue Orihime is also there, constantly asking himself. But in her heart, there is always a voice that prevents herself from being there. That's a feeling of fear, what's that? Inoue Orihime is always asking himself. And the appreciative person next to him has been there all the time, constantly letting in and cheering for Kurosaki Ichigo. However, I also looked at Kurosaki Ichigo, where he was frequently beaten up, but couldn't tell. But only, let the person next to thank you, keep talking there. At this time, Kurosaki Ichigo has fallen into a huge crisis. Kurosaki Ichigo's body is also injured in many places. Grimmjow's strength is indeed very powerful. Especially after the liberation, Grimmjow has become a leopard king, and its speed and strength have been greatly improved. Even if Kurosaki Ichigo is hollow, he cannot resist Grimmjow's attack head-on. After seeing Kurosaki Ichigo and losing frequently, Kurosaki Ichigo was finally forced into the corner. Kurosaki Ichigo, who was seriously injured, would be killed by the Leopard King in the next blow. Seeing this, Inoue finally shouted out. Don't die, Kurosaki Ichigo, you must not die, no matter what, you must live. Come on. When Kurosaki Ichigo heard the cheering sound, he was taken aback. Originally, Kurosaki Ichigo did not show his full strength. It can be said that it is precisely because Kurosaki Ichigo takes Inoue's kind of brooding thoughts in his heart. Therefore, Kurosaki Ichigo is also very difficult to fight against Grimmjow wholeheartedly. At this time, Orihime's bulging and cheering sound aroused his inner fighting spirit. I saw that Kurosaki Ichigo used his hand again to grab the paw of the Leopard King who was attacking him. Then, he slashed out, and the Leopard King who was cut in the chest sprayed blood and knelt there. Kurosaki Ichigo looked at him and said, you can't beat me anymore. However, Before Kurosaki Ichigo has finished speaking, a leopard claw has stabbed him in the abdomen. Kurosaki Ichigo suddenly felt a pain in his stomach. Kurosaki Ichigo also did not expect that Grimmjow still had the ability to fight back. As a result, he was hit by Grimmjow unsuspectingly, and Kurosaki Ichigo, who was already severely injured, was hit. Now Kurosaki Ichigo couldn't hold on anymore and fell to the ground. Ha 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 ha. At this time, Grimmjow 620 was there and laughed. Grimmjow saw that this guy who had been fighting against him was finally defeated by him, and he was very happy there. Although Grimmjow was also injured, and it looked like a serious wound, in fact, the impact on Grimmjow was not too great. Grimmjow was there, raising the knife in his hand. And there, looking at Kurosaki Ichigo coldly. Since you have been defeated by me, then there is no need for you to survive. Now, let me act as a strong man and send you to hell. As a result, the paw went down. At this time, Inoue, who was standing on a high place, was there and shouted. However, it is of no avail. No matter how Inoue Orihime shouted, he couldn't stop Grimmjow from attacking Kurosaki Ichigo's claws. However, at that moment, a powerful Reiatsu flew from behind. Chapter 295. Qian Ye save the field. And easily respond to the enemy 3x ask for subscription. Advertise here. Grimmjow also felt the pressure, and quickly avoided it. After Grimmjow escaped from Reiatsu's attack, he was there, staring sharply at Reiatsu's master. Is that you again? Originally I wanted to go to you to settle the account after defeating him. I didn't expect you to come here so quickly. However, Qian Ye walked forward slowly and came to Kurosaki Ichigo's side. I saw that Qian Ye at this moment took out a pill with special healing effects and handed it to Nailu next to him. Nero, you take this to Kurosaki Ichigo, and leave the rest to me. Nailu nodded there and came to Kurosaki Ichigo's side. Qian Ye looked up at Inoue who was standing on the high platform, and smiled and said, Kurosaki Ichigo. Please come and take you back with him. You successfully saved the field. Get event reward. Spiritual power plus 100. Hearing Qian Ye's words, Inoue was there for a moment, and then tears flowed in the frame of his eyes. Inoue Orihime, I didn't believe it just now, Kurosaki Ichigo came to take him away. When Inoue Orihime looked at Kurosaki Ichigo's hollow, he felt very scared when he went to Orihime. However, now I heard Qian Ye say this, and Inoue Orihime did the same. I really believe it completely. It turned out that Kurosaki Ichigo did come here and wanted to take himself back. However, Orihime still couldn't let go of it, and quickly wiped away his tears, and then restored his original expression there. Inoue Orihime knows that she can't be weak now, otherwise, she would have given up all her efforts. And her friends and relatives will also enter a dangerous situation. Just like the current Kurosaki Ichigo, he was defeated by Grikamjo and almost lost his life. And this Qian Ye in front of him will end in the same way. Qian Ye seemed to see that Inoue Orihime's mind, he said there. I am very strong. Since Kurosaki Ichigo brought me here, I will defeat them and take you away. Seeing that Inoue didn't speak, Qian Ye turned his head and looked at Grimmjow who was standing there. Grimmjow, you want to fight me. However, you are already wounded now, if you beat you now, you must be dissatisfied in your heart. At this moment, Qian Ye took out a special healing pill from his waist again and threw it over. Eat it. It can restore you to your peak state in an instant. Then, you will fight with me again. Originally, Grimmjow looked at Qian Ye nervously. Because in this world, he was defeated by Qian Ye very easily. Grimmjow also knows Qian Ye's strength very well. Moreover, now he is seriously injured. Although Grimmjow didn't care, he also knew that he would definitely not be Qian Ye's opponent. Grimmjow took the medicine that Qian Ye threw to him and ate it without hesitation. In an instant, his body began to recover completely. At this time, Grimmjow also felt the strength of his own body. Grimmjow also did not expect that Qian Ye's pill would have such a powerful healing power. However, Grimmjow did not care about why Qian Ye gave the pill to himself. And Grimmjow, the only thing he thinks now is to kill the guy in front of him. Grimmjow also wanted to kill Qian Ye to prove his strength. Grimmjow also waved his own violent claws without hesitation, and attacked Qian Ye immediately and swiftly. At this time, Qian Ye was already the Zanpakuto who pulled him out. And all of a sudden, it resisted Grimmjow's attack. You know, Grimmjow's blow was to blow Kurosaki Ichigo. However, Qian Ye was very easily blocked. This is impossible. Grimmjow was also there, pale in shock, and looked at Qian Ye County very surprised. However, this was only short-lived, and I didn't think so much. Grimmjow did not hesitate anymore, desperately, frantically, and launched a fierce attack on Qian Ye. But Qian Ye just kept waving, and Mickey now in his king's hand completely blocked Grimmjow's attack. Ranked 6th, you are destined to be unable to become the king. Leopard King, you will die here today. Qian Ye was there and spoke very plainly. At this time, Grimmjow couldn't listen to these words of Qian Ye at all. But he continued to use his own claws to attack Qian Ye. Grimmjow constantly changes his body shape and moves quickly. However, no matter what angle Grimmjow was from which direction he attacked Qian Ye remained motionless. With only Mickey now in her own hands, she could easily and completely resist her. Chapter 296. Qian Ye hits Grimmjow hard. Inoue Orihime regains confidence. Advertise here. Grimmjow was there, and while attacking Qian Ye, he was secretly surprised in his heart. Although Grimmjow knew that Qian Ye's strength was strong, he did not expect that it would be so strong. Moreover, when Qian Ye was still there, and there was no liberation at all, Grimmjow was still so vulnerable. Grimmjow too, hesitated slightly in his heart, and slowed his movements by half. And it was only half of this point, but Qian Ye caught the flaw. It's too late to say, then it's fast. Qian Ye slashed at Grimmjow's chest. Grimmjow was cut in the chest again, blood spurting out. Grimmjow, who was cut in the chest, was also there, looking at Qian Ye in astonishment. However, Grimmjow did the same, and did not rush up again like he attacked Kurosaki Ichigo. Because Grimmjow knew that the trick used to deal with Kurosaki Ichigo, used to deal with 623 Qian Ye, was simply useless. So Grimmjow jumped back and jumped into the air. Then there, laughing wildly. At this time, Grimmjow also stretched his arms to the sides, and then said loudly. Let you taste it, my last stunt. However, Qian Ye just stood there like this, and looked up at Grimmjow, who was standing in the air, and did not speak. At this moment, Grimmjow and Reiatsu are also starting to increase. His claws, extending indefinitely, turned into 10 giant blue claws in the air. Seeing Grimmjow, in this way, Qian Ye was also there, and he became more serious. Ha 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 ha. Grimmjow in the sky saw Qian Ye's expression change, but he laughed loudly there. Grimmjow and Qian Ye have fought for so long, only to see that Qian Ye is always the same, calm and breezy. This also made Grimmjow feel very upset and humiliated in his heart. After playing for so long, Qian Ye didn't even play Bankai. Grimmjow, who was very angry, waved his right hand and slashed towards Qian Ye with 5 huge blue lights. At this moment, the sky seemed to be scratched by Grimmjow. However, just when the 5 blue lights were about to be cut on Qian Ye. However, I saw Qian Ye, and now Mickey stretched out his hand, and then steadily blocked the 5 blue lights. At the same time, Qian Ye flicked, and the 5 blue lights broke off. Even if it was, Grimmjow's strongest trick was equally vulnerable in front of Qian Ye. Grimmjow, seeing Qian Ye so handily, defeated his own trick, the Claw of the Leopard King. Suddenly, he was there too, laughing dumbfounded. Grickum Joe, it's hard to imagine how powerful this person is. Of course Grimmjow knows that this can be done, except for Aizen Sōsuke, no one else. Could it be said that Qian Ye is already CDEJ, strong enough to be comparable to Aizen Sōsuke? However, before Grimmjow came back to his senses, he only felt a flash of figures behind him. Grimmjow did the same, he didn't need to look back, he knew that Qian Ye had arrived, behind him. Qian Ye smiled slightly when he was there. You really are still, very powerful. It's just that Qian Ye's now Mickey has penetrated Grimmjow's chest. This is also the so-called, taking advantage of your illness, killing you. However, Qian Ye didn't plan to kill Grimmjow, but just injured him seriously. I saw that Grimmjow at this time also fainted and was unconscious. At this moment, Qian Ye caught him, fell down Grimmjow, and then placed Grimmjow on the ground. At this moment, Qian Ye jumped slightly, and walked over to Inoue's side on the high platform. Qian Ye looked at Inoue and smiled slightly. Inoue Orihime. Are you going to save him? At this moment, Inoue was already stunned there. Of course she also knew Grimmjow's strength. Although she doesn't know how strong it is, Inoue Orihime also knows that as the former Espada of Aizen, he is also a very powerful existence. Even Kurosaki Ichigo was defeated by him. And Orihime did not expect that Qian Ye would defeat Grimmjow so easily. Inoue Orihime, when he saw such a powerful Qian Ye, he suddenly felt that an inexplicable sense of trust appeared in her heart. Inoue Orihime did the same, nodded there and said, I'm going to save him. Hearing Inoue Orihime's answer, Qian Ye took her down and came to Kurosaki Ichigo's side. Then quickly treat him, there will be more fierce fighting next. He can't. He has been lying there and sleeping. Hearing Qian Ye's words, Inoue didn't hesitate and immediately started treating Kurosaki Ichigo. Kurosaki Ichigo has already taken that special effect pill, just to cure these injuries, it will be fine. Chapter 297. Nailu's Fear. Advertise here. So, I joined Inoue Orihime and quickly started to treat Kurosaki Ichigo immediately. And at this moment, Qian Ye suddenly felt that Reiatsu appeared suddenly. Qian Ye's expression also began to become a little serious. At this time, Qian Ye also looked towards a place not far away. As that trash finally falling down. I always say that I want to defeat everyone. Now it is, lying there so miserably, it really makes people laugh. Following the voice, I saw a tall and thin man carrying a sword with the sun and crescent moon. He slowly walked over to Qian Ye. Qian Ye shook now Mickey in her hand and looked at him there too. It seemed that the man was not walking fast and his movements were a little slow, but the distance between Qian Ye and Qian Ye was indeed shortened in an instant. The man stopped a few meters in front of Qian Ye, and just looked at Qian Ye like that. You are very powerful, even Grimmjow, Such rubbish has been defeated by you so easily. I am very interested in you. I'm not interested in you. Qian Ye said indifferently. Really? What are you going to do? Run away? The man asked. Although you are not my opponent, it is okay to waste some time on you. After all, you are also one of Espada. Hearing Qian Ye's words, the person holding the sun and moon broadsword. Suddenly, his brows wrinkled, and his expression began to become ferocious. You guy, you really don't like it. I'm not telling a joke, and there is no way to please you. Qian Ye said again. Oh, is it? Let's get started. The long-haired, tall and thin person holding the sun-moon broadsword was Nutra, and while talking, he rushed towards Qian Ye. The sun and moon sword was connected to Nutra's body with an iron chain. He was thrown by Nutra. Qian Ye also raised now Mickey to resist. Qian Ye felt that his immense power was indeed much stronger than Grimmjow. Qian Ye is a little bit, it's hard to imagine that, like his thin and tall body, there is such an explosive power. Qian Ye blocked Nutra's attack. However, Nutra did not stop. After taking back the broadsword of tomorrow, sun and moon, he continued to attack Qian Ye. Qian Ye also waved, and Mickey now in his own hand constantly resisted his attack. Qian Ye also feels that facing Nutra is a bit more difficult than facing Grimmjow. Is there such a big gap between 5th and 6th? This is not the case. Nutra's strength is already strong, but he doesn't care too much about ranking. In fact, his strength is several times stronger than Grimmjow. Nutra continued to raise the sword and hacked at Qian Ye. At this time, Qian Ye also became a little serious. Because Qian Ye knew that if the person in front of him didn't knock him down, there would be no way to leave here. The purpose of their coming here is to save Inoue out. And now Inoue is by their side. However, other people also need to rescue them by themselves. However, just when Qian Ye was ready to go all out to defeat Nutra. At this moment, Nailu, who was next to her, had a situation there. Qian Ye also stopped and looked at Nailu there. Beg for flowers. As Qian Ye could see, Nailu seemed very scared. So Qian Ye flashed away and came to Nailu's side, then looked at Nailu and asked. Nilu, what's wrong with you? What happened? Nailu was there, clutching her head constantly, and moaning in pain there. At this time, Nutra, who was next to him, also saw Nailu. Nutra was there, and said with some doubts. Is it Nailu? Unexpectedly you will be here. I just said, how can these people find here so quickly? It turns out that you are leading the way. Hearing Nutra's voice, Nailu was there, trembling visibly. Qian Ye knew that Nailu's state must also have a lot to do with Nutra. So Qian Ye came to Nailu's side, and then patted Nailu's shoulder said. Nailu, what's the matter with you? Nailu, what can you tell me? I will help you. Hearing Qian Ye's voice, Nailu's face trembled, and it seemed that it had also eased a lot. Slowly, Nailu raised her head and looked at Qian Ye. Brother Qian Ye, I remember, who am I? When I saw this guy, I remembered. While talking, Nailu was there, crying. Qian Ye looked at Nailu, who was crying there, and was also there, frowning slightly. I don't care who you are. You are my friend. Is that guy your enemy? Nailu was there and nodded. It was him that broke the mask on top of my head and became like this. Fan. Chapter 298. Nailu and Nutra's past. Oh, so, what else do you look like? Nailu was there again, nodded, and then looked at Qian Ye just about to say, I. Qian Ye was there, waving his hand. Nilu, don't tell me for now, wait until I beat him, let's talk about it. With that said, Qian Ye stood up and turned his head to look at Nutra. Ha ha ha, it turns out that she has been with you all the time, but I can't find her no matter how I look for it. Qian Ye looked at Nutra just like that, and then walked towards him step by step. 623, Neutra saw Qian Ye's appearance, and then said there, do you know who she is? He deceived you all. Shut up, you don't need to say any more, what you need to do now is to be prepared to bear my anger. Qian Ye said angrily. Ha ha ha, you are really an annoying fellow. As a result, Nutra stopped talking, and immediately attacked Qian Ye again. And this time, Qian Ye didn't keep his hands anymore. With every attack by Qian Ye, Nutra was sent flying away. Nutra endured Qian Ye's attack and felt that Qian Ye's strength was also growing. Moreover, the speed is getting faster and faster. Nutra at this time also seemed to be somewhat unable to withstand Qian Ye's attack. But at this moment, in this attack, Qian Ye hit Nutra again with a single blow. It's just that I haven't waited for Neutra yet, so I'm relieved. Qian Ye made another stab, slashing towards Neutra's chest, and the blood spurted out immediately. Neutra felt the pain in his chest. Ha 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 ha. Neutra, who was there, laughed again. It's so happy, you guy, you are really strong. However, I will never let you go. Qian Ye didn't, and continued to speak, just looking at Neutra coldly. At this time, Nailu also stood up and watched the battle between Qian Ye and Neutra. Nailu's body no longer trembled as before, and her eyes became firmer than before. At this moment, Qian Ye looked back at Nailu who was standing there. Feeling her change, I feel better about confession. However, how did he hate Neutra in front of him? He didn't go to see Nailu again, but continued to slash at Nutra. As for Nutra, he had already seen the expression of Qian Ye when he looked at Nailu just now. It was also there that his eyes narrowed slightly, and it seemed that he had thought of a way to expose Qian Ye's flaws. Just when Qian Ye attacked him again, suddenly he disappeared. When he appeared again, he came to the top of Nailu. Nailu would feel terrified when he heard Nutra's voice. At this moment, his eyes were very firm, and Nutra, who was looking to him, was carrying a big knife. Not only that, but also smiled slightly there. Seeing Nailu smile at this time, Nutra was also taken aback. Nutra was there immediately, and he became angry. The damn it guy, dare to laugh at me. I shouldn't let you go at the time. Now I will cut you off. As Nutra said, the Sun Moon broadsword slashed at Nailu quickly. Is it really good for you to do this? At this moment, Qian Ye's voice suddenly came from Nutra's ear. As Qian Ye's voice came, Qian Ye had already appeared, beside Nutra. Seeing Qian Ye turned around, he flew up and kicked Nutra's waist and abdomen. Just before Nutra's broadsword was slashed at Nailu, Qian Ye kicked it out. When Nutra was in the air, he spat out a mouthful of blood, and fell heavily to the ground. It can be seen how powerful Qian Ye's kick should be. Qian Ye came, and Nailu looked at her with a smile and said, "It looks like you are no longer anymore. Are you scared anymore?" "Brother Qian Ye, as long as you are by my side, I really won't be scared anymore, hee." Nailu said, but she smiled. Ha 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 ha. 4.9 inches. Qian Ye was also there for a moment, and then burst into laughter. At this moment, Qian Ye turned his head and looked at Neutra, who was shot flying by him. His face became cold. "It is unreasonable, it is an unforgivable sin for you guy to sneak attack on that child, Nailu." Neutra, who was knocked to the ground and vomiting blood, also stood up at this moment. And there, looking at Qian Ye with a sullen face, he also burst into laughter. Ha ha ha, it turned out to be so. It seems that you really are and care about Nailu very much. This is not really a bit, it is extremely ridiculous. Chapter 299. Qian Ye wants to save his partner's helplessness. Advertise here. At this time, Neutra continued there and said, "Then things are much simpler, in the next battle. You have to remember one thing, I will attack her at any time, you must protect her." Qian Ye's eyes gradually became colder, and he looked at him there and said, "Do you think you have such a chance?" "That's hard to say, who knows." Nutra, as he spoke, he waved, and the big knife in his hand slashed towards Qian Ye. At this time, Qian Ye stepped on Shunko and attacked Nutra. Qian Ye and Nutra were fighting together again. At this time, occupying Neutra, he also tried his best to stop Qian Ye's attack. 23. At this moment, Qian Ye didn't stay behind, but he wanted to defeat this Neutra as quickly as possible. Qian Ye absolutely can't give Nutra any chance, no longer let him go, close to Nailu. Moreover, Qian Ye at this time was also faintly aware that there were several strong Reiatsu appearing in different places. And there, it should be the place where they came to, Hueco Mundo, where the partners are. Qian Ye also knew that Sato Yasutora, Ishida Yulong, and Abarai Renji had strong powers in their vicinity, which made Qian Ye also very worried. And just as Qian Ye was worried, Sato Yasutora, Ishida Yulong, and Abarai Renji who were fainting at the moment. 3 groups of Arankar came separately. Here, Abarai Renji, he is with Ishida Yulong, dealing with the one that was cut by Qian Ye just now, the 8th Espada Zael Aporo. After being seriously injured by Qian Ye did not kill him. But the 8th Espada Zael Aporo actually used his ability to recover. When he came to the place where he fought Qian Ye again, Qian Ye had already gone to Nutra. At this moment, Abarai Renji and Ishida Yulong, the two of them, happened to come here and saw the 8th Espada Zael Aporo. Abarai Renji and Ishida Yulong were also very surprised, and they also became very vigilant. Because although they haven't seen Espada on the 8th, the person in front of them looks like Reiatsu is very strong. "You two guys, where are you going?" Abarai Renji and Ishida Yulong looked at Zael Aporo and said, "We are here to defeat you." Ha ha ha, although I was ran away by that guy, I was bullied by him just now. Now I see you, so I have to take you out of my anger. Speaking of Zael Aporo, he also pulled out his own knife, and then began to sing. Sip. Concubine Xie Yin. With the end of Zael Aporo's chanting, his weapon opened Shikai. The state of Zael Aporo also began to change. And Zael Aporo's body, the back stretched out, 4 long branches. One by one hangs on it, which resembles a flower bud. Abarai Renji and Ishida Yulong, seeing this Zael Aporo, became even more alert. Abarai Renji and Ishida Yulong are also very clear that Espada after liberation is definitely not so easy to deal with. So the two of them took precautions there. At this time, I saw Zael Aporo with his hands flat. The buds on that branch began to spew out, blue-black slimy, strong things, and there were a lot of them. Ishida Yulong and Abarai Renji quickly took shelter there. However, I still accidentally got on my body by something similar to the sticky black and blue, nasal mucus. The blue-black sticky object that stuck to the body suddenly changed. It started slowly and became like Abarai Renji and Ishida Yulong. Zael Aporo was also proud of being there. This is my trick. As long as these substances contaminate your 623s, they will clone your appearance. Don't think that only the appearance is the same, it still has your absolute, exactly the same strength, equivalent to you, it is the same as fighting yourself. Hearing what Aporo said, Abarai Renji and Ishida Yulong also had a headache at the moment. Because of them, the sticky matter sticking to them has increased. And the bodies that are exactly the same as them are constantly increasing. It is equivalent to them now, one person has to fight against several of them. They kept dodge, the black and blue sticky things falling from the air. On the one hand, they have to hide. Those who have become the same strength as them, it is very hard to fight. At this time, Qian Ye was still there against Neutra. Although Neutra is not his opponent, but wanting to get rid of him as soon as possible, to help Abarai Renji and the others, it is a little helpless. Chapter 300. Reinforcements are here. Scientist Kuretsuchi Mayuri. Advertise here. Just when Qian Ye was worried, he suddenly felt that a few Reiatsu came here. Feeling that the master of Reiatsu, Qian Ye was there, he smiled slightly. It seems that Ishida Yulong and Abarai Renji don't need to go there by themselves, and don't worry. At this moment, Qian Ye was watching, and Neutra said, I can fight you wholeheartedly now. Hearing what Qian Ye said, Neutra was there, a little unclear. Could it be that you just now didn't fight me seriously at all? Qian Ye nodded and said, if I were to fight seriously, you would have been defeated by me now. Haha, stop talking big, I admit that you are very strong, but if you want to beat me, you are still far away. Neutra was there too, laughing wildly. Treating Qian Ye in front of him, Neutra, indeed knows that Qian Ye is much better than Kurosaki Ichigo. However, Neutra did not believe that he would never lose. So, Neutra raised the big knife again and slashed towards Qian Ye. Qian Ye also immediately shikai. Let's dance. Now Mickey. I don't want to play with you anymore, I'll continue playing, Espada is the fifth, Neutra, right. Let me take care of you. And here is Abarai Renji and Ishida Yulong. Still very hard, fighting against Aporo, they have been forced into a desperate situation at this moment. Seeing that it was going to be, when they were no match for the opponent's attack, but at this moment, a person with a strange mask appeared in front of them suddenly. And this person is Kuretsuchi Mayuri, the captain of the 12th division. The Nirvana scraping at this time was blocked between Aporo and Abarai Renji and Ishida Yulong. Who are you? 1. Aporo was also there, watching with some alertness, this strange-looking person came. Aporo, of course, knows that this person is also Shinigami. Aporo knows very well that he is here to help Abarai Renji and Ishida Yulong's reinforcements. Reiatsu, Aporo, who felt the other party, did not dare to feel anything, easy and negligent. At this time, Kuretsuchi Mayuri also looked at Aporo, and then smiled evilly. Who am I? It doesn't make any sense to say it. Because I came here, it proves that your life is about to end. Ha ha ha, Shinigami, are you all so arrogant? The person who chopped me into serious wounds before, although he didn't kill me, looks even more proud than you. However, I am still standing here. Did you see them both? The end of the two of them, you will be exactly like them. Kuretsuchi Mayuri turned his head and glanced at Ishida Yulong and Abarai Renji. But he said there, these two guys are really too weak, and being able to survive in front of you proves that you are not very strong either. Hearing Kuretsuchi Mayuri's words, Aporo's face was also very unsightly. At this time, Aporo, the bud on his branch, began to change again. Suddenly stretched forward, then surrounded Kuretsuchi Mayuri and wrapped it in. Abarai Renji and Ishida Yulong saw it at this time. Kuretsuchi Mayuri was caught so easily. The flower bag was suddenly shocked. You know, the two of them just ate enough, and the bud suffered. After being caught by that bud, a doll will appear and fall into Aporo's hands. Then inside the doll, there are some small wooden sticks that represent human internal organs. When Aporo gently destroyed those little sticks with his hands, the internal organs in their bodies will be damaged. This is Aporo, a very powerful trick. Both Abarai Renji and Ishida Yulong were defeated in such a trick. As for the cloned people, Abarai Renji and Ishida Yulong have already been defeated by 2 people. They broke the ceiling of that room, and then smashed all the cloned guys to death, Wang Lizao. However, just when they thought that they had won, they did not expect Aporo to use this trick again. I sucked the 2 of them into the bud again, and then appeared, a doll of the 2 of them. Aporo caught the doll and took out the small wooden sticks that represented their internal organs. After breaking them, both Abarai Renji and Ishida Yulong suffered heavy injuries and fell to the ground, unable to stand up anymore. At this moment, when Abarai Renji and Ishida Yulong saw Kuretsuchi Mayuri, they also hit Aporo. They were also very anxious. Chapter 301. The Battle of 2 Scientists. Advertise here. Although, Kuretsuchi Mayuri is one of their least favorite Shinigami. However, since he came here to rescue them, they still don't want him to die like this. As for Kuretsuchi Mayuri, who was spit out by the flower buds, it seems that he still doesn't know what happened. It was there, watching with some surprise, Aporo said. What happened just now? My body doesn't seem to be damaged. Are you playing hide and seek with me? Ha 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 ha. Zaporo was there and laughed loudly. Hide and seek, are you kidding? But that's right, just let me tell you what I did just now. So, Zaporo picked up the doll of Kuretsuchi Mayuri again, and then opened it. Inside, a pile of small wooden sticks represents the 627 internal organs of Kuretsuchi Mayuri and various organs of the body. I saw that Zaporo picked up a small wooden stick, clamped it gently with his fingers, and broke it forcefully. At this time, Kuretsuchi Mayuri also suddenly vomited a mouthful of blood, and his organs were also injured. Kuretsuchi Mayuri, too, looked up and looked at Zaporo in amazement. Now, Kuretsuchi Mayuri finally understood this, what happened just now. Kuretsuchi Mayuri just wanted to and walked forward, but at this time Zaporo picked up another stick. At this time, the back of Kuretsuchi Mayuri's ankle was cut open all of a sudden, and it was injured again. Kuretsuchi Mayuri also fell to the ground, unable to move. At this time, Zaporo did not stop there. And constantly, the wooden sticks in the doll in his hand, one by one, are constantly breaking. CDEJ. Kuretsuchi Mayuri, who fell on the ground and wailed constantly, seemed to be severely devastated. At the last moment, Zaporo took out another, slightly longer stick. And there, looking at Kuretsuchi Mayuri coldly. At this time, he was tortured into a disastrous state, and almost fainted there, Kuretsuchi Mayuri. At this time, Zaporo said there, Captain, isn't it? I can't think of it. I originally thought that you would have the strength, how powerful. However, killing you is also an honor, even if your strength is not that strong. Zaporo, after speaking, he used force again and broke the stick. After the stick broke, a red light flashed at Kuretsuchi Mayuri's throat. Kuretsuchi Mayuri fell to the ground, motionless. At this time, his subordinate, Nianmeng, was there and ran forward. However, Nianmeng was also caught by a vine on Zaporo's branch and hung in the air, unable to support his captain Kuretsuchi Mayuri. Ha 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 ha. Zaporo, who was already holding the winning ticket, was also there. He laughed at Kuretsuchi Mayuri, who was lying motionless there. Just as Zaporo was laughing, he suddenly felt that there was a mask in front of him. But it was very sudden, appearing there, it also scared Zaporo a big jump, and, hurriedly back, took a step back. At this time, Kuretsuchi Mayuri, who was lying on the ground, slowly stood up. Zaporo did the same, his eyes widened at once. Zaporo didn't believe that everything he saw before his eyes really happened before his eyes. How could Kuretsuchi Mayuri, who had been killed by himself, stand there unscathed? At this time, Zaporo took out the Kuretsuchi Mayuri doll again, and took out the tree stick that represented the organ of Kuretsuchi Mayuri. In the same way, after breaking it forcefully, I saw Kuretsuchi Mayuri, still reacting in the same way and vomiting a mouthful of blood. Doesn't this still work? Why did you not die? Zaporo yelled loudly there. The reason I was able to do this, I would also like to thank the guy over there, the bastard Quincy. Quote. Hey, who are you scolding? Be careful I kill you. Ishida Yuryu, who was barely standing there, was hearing what Kuretsuchi Mayuri said. He was also a little dazed there, but also very angry, looking at Kuretsuchi Mayuri. However, Kuretsuchi Mayuri was looking at it, and Ishida Yulong glanced at it. But it's just that, no more, go to Ishida Yulong again. But Kuretsuchi Mayuri continued there and said, that Quinosius, I put a tracker on him, it is a kind of bacteria. Through that kind of bacteria, it is the tracker, I can observe everything he goes through. Quote. I saw all the battle between you and Zaporo just now. However, Kuretsuchi Mayuri knew that after your ability, I made 2 organs. So, now it will naturally be safe and sound. Quote. You were there, what are you talking about? How can you do that kind of thing? Zaporo asked very puzzled. Chapter 302, means after Kuretsuchi Mayuri Bankai. Advertise here. How is this possible? I only fought him, less than an hour. How can you make a complete set of organs? Zaporo looked at, and Kuretsuchi Mayuri said very suspiciously there. But Kuretsuchi Mayuri was watching, Zaporo seemed a bit disapproving. For Zaporo's suspicion and wonder, Kuretsuchi Mayuri felt that it was a tribute to him. So Kuretsuchi Mayuri said there, are you complimenting me? However, I still want to tell you that it is because I can do this that I became the captain of the 12th division. Furthermore, it can come before you. Hearing what Kuretsuchi Mayuri said, Zaporo was there, no longer speaking, but coldly, looking at Kuretsuchi Mayuri. Seeing that Zaporo stopped talking, Kuretsuchi Mayuri said there again, since you don't have any special abilities, then I will let you see it, I'm great. Bankai. Kuretsuchi Mayuri came directly from Bankai. After Kuretsuchi Mayuri Bankai, his knife began to change. It became a Jizo, with a huge baby head and a bug's body behind it, floating in the air. Zaporo was stunned at the sight of this behemoth, very weird thing in front of him. What is this? Kuretsuchi Mayuri saw the look of Zaporo, and said disdainfully, feel his greatness. Therefore, Kuretsuchi Mayuri, with a wave of his hand, sprayed a blue mist from the back of Jizo. The mist moved towards Zaporo, filled the past, and quickly surrounded him. Is it poison? Is this poison? Zale was there, watching with some horror, these dark purple smoke. After a while, Zale felt that his body began to feel a little numb. The half of Zale face also began to turn purple. Zale, but touched with his own hands, wanted to use his own method to detoxify. However, Zale discovered that his hands also turned purple. And the buds on his branch power began to turn purple. What kind of poison is this? How could it be so powerful? Zale, who was panicked there, looked at those left and right at this time, and they had turned into blue buds. I don't know what to do. At this moment, Jizo, which fell from the sky, opened its big mouth. What? Before Zale said anything, he was swallowed by the Jizo. Commanded by Kuretsuchi Mayuri, Jizo recovered his purple smoke and floated in the air. At this time, Kuretsuchi Mayuri turned around and glanced at Ishida Yulong and Abarai Renji. You two guys are really too weak. People like this beat you like this. Hearing what Kuretsuchi Mayuri said, Ishida Ryu was there, but he said unconvincingly, that guy is a special existence. Besides, we have been fighting for a long time. Hearing what Ishida Ryu said, Kuretsuchi Mayuri was even more disdainful. But at this time, Kuretsuchi Mayuri suddenly turned cold, and looked back at Jizo. I saw a tree trunk stretched out on the body of Jizang, and a flower bud appeared on the trunk. That was the Nianwu who was captured by Zale, but he didn't expect him to be alive. For flowers. Kuretsuchi Mayuri smiled there and said, Otonashi, I didn't expect you to be alive. You were really lucky. But Otonashi was just like that, looking at Kuretsuchi Mayuri and did not speak. Kuretsuchi Mayuri frowned when she saw Otonashi like this. Why blame me? Didn't you save you just now? It seems that you have forgotten that I am the captain. Kuretsuchi Mayuri, who was about to get angry, suddenly saw Otonashi's body begin to change. Wait until he realizes, what? A figure flew out of Otonashi's body, but Otonashi disappeared. At this moment, standing in Kuretsuchi Mayuri, what is in front of him is Zale, who was resurrected by the spirit child in Otonashi's body. Seeing Zale, resurrected standing in front of him, Kuretsuchi Mayuri was not too surprised. Maybe Kuretsuchi Mayuri is used to seeing too many weird things. He has also done a lot of incredible things. Known as a scientist, he has rare things and crazy obsessions. Seeing the resurrection of Zale, Kuretsuchi Mayuri was there, and said with interest. Hey, this is really a good ability, how did you do it? Hearing Kuretsuchi Mayuri's words, Zale suddenly began to take precautions. For the person in front of him, Zale is now a little worried. In Hueco Mundo, Zale, who considers himself a scientist, is omnipotent. Because he can make all kinds of weird things. However, when facing the person in front of him, Zale suddenly realized that he was like a primary school student. Where? Chapter 303. 100 years in 1 second. Advertise here. In invention and creation, it is not his opponent at all. It can be said that he was completely defeated in front of him. Kuretsuchi Mayuri saw Zale on guard, but smiled there and said, you don't have to be like this at all, because it won't help. By the way, would you like to be my new drug test? Zale cloth is, where he said viciously, what did you say? A new drug experiment. Kuretsuchi Mayuri said with a smile, it's the one you have in your body now. In Zale mind, what Kuretsuchi Mayuri said just now, the beginning of 627, slowly slowed down, this feeling is not good at all. Even so, Zale still understands what Kuretsuchi Mayuri said. Zale also understood that his body had been poisoned. It is the Kuretsuchi Mayuri, the new medicine in the mouth. At this moment, Kuretsuchi Mayuri's face became serious. You were in Otonashi's body just now, using his soul to resurrect, and at the same time, you also absorbed the new medicine into your body. Now, you are feeling the exertion of the power of the medicine. How? This medicine makes your senses very sharp and advanced. It's like still. Like this, hold up a knife. As Kuretsuchi Mayuri said, he raised the knife in front of Zale. However, the knife in Zale eyes was still hanging down and did not reach him. Kuretsuchi Mayuri said, in your eyes, all moving objects have now been delayed 10,000 times, just like this knife. Even if it is pierced, your palm will not be painful until 100 years later. Even now, even if it pierced your heart, you who have been killed will feel that after 100 years, the knife will pierce your heart. This medicine gives people this feeling. You will taste it slowly. This feeling will bring you beauty. Kuretsuchi Mayuri said, and stabbed the knife into Zale body. And at this moment, Zale, the knife in his eyes, has not even lifted up. Waiting for the knife to slowly rise, and then slowly stabbed him. He feels like 50 years have passed. The most frightening thing is that he can't move, he can only wait to die there. I can only plead in my heart, hoping that the knife can be faster, even a little bit faster, he will be satisfied. But that's it, the knife is as static as it is. But again, slowly approaching him. This kind of suffering in waiting is really the most painful torture. Ishida Yulong and Sato Yasutora, who saw Kuretsuchi Mayuri easily, killed Zale and were shocked. At this time, Ishida Yulong and Sato Yasutora were also very amazed there. The strength of these captains was too strong. At this moment, the injuries of both of them have been slowly treated by members of the medical guard. And at the moment here in Sato Yasutora and Gunpine are all lying on the ground. Although they did not completely die, they were also unable to move. At this moment, a bald-headed he came here. He has a burly figure, his eyes are as big as copper bells, and his mouth and lips are very thick. Looking at the two men with a handful of short sword. Since the battle has already been played, it has no meaning, and it has no meaning to live in this world. Instead of staying alive, I might as well give you a show for you. However, just when he raised the knife and wanted to cut it at Sato Yasutora, a figure suddenly appeared behind him. Feeling that Reiatsu behind him, the monk with big eyes, also stopped, slashing downwards. Turned his head and looked at the man. I saw this man, dressed in a robe, and his hair was composed of white and black. Looks colder and noble. The person who came here is Byakuya Kuchiki. Seeing this person in front of me, this monk with big eyes, he could see it all at once. The Shinigami in front of him is at the captain level. So, he declared his name there. I am Espada number 7 and my name is Zamari. What is your name? Who am I? 4.9 Byakuya Kuchiki Byakuya, but they're said, you don't deserve to know my name. What? You arrogant fellow. You dare to be so arrogant. Zamari also said angrily. Byakuya Kuchiki didn't speak, but looked at him coldly there. Then he glanced at Sato Yasutora and Ganbayan lying on the ground. Seeing Byakuya Kuchiki Byakuya's eyes, Zamari laughed there. Do you think you can save the two of them? At this time, Byakuya Kuchiki said there, do you think you can kill them? Chapter 304. Byakuya Kuchiki ignores Zamari. Advertise here. Ha ha ha, not only can I kill them, even you, an arrogant fellow, I am not going to let you go. Before you speak, you must combine your own abilities, otherwise you will be, right. Zamari looked at Byakuya Kuchiki in front of him. And Byakuya Kuchiki disappeared before his eyes when he moved. When he reappeared, he had already come behind Zamari and said there. That's what I mean. However, not Byakuya Kuchiki, he drew his knife. And in front of him, Zamari also disappeared. When he reappeared, it was the same, already here, behind Byakuya Kuchiki. He drew his knife and slashed at Byakuya Kuchiki. Byakuya Kuchiki also quickly drew the knife 23 and resisted. After the two faced off, Byakuya Kuchiki retreated back. Sure enough, it's a captain-level reaction, and the speed is amazing. Hearing Zamari's words, Byakuya Kuchiki still looked at him blankly. When Zamari saw Byakuya Kuchiki, his arrogant look made his heart angry. Although he looked like a monk, he still didn't cultivate his own character. In Byakuya Kuchiki, under the arrogant and impudent treatment, he finally became angry. At this time, Zamari moved in his footsteps and came to the back of Byakuya Kuchiki. And Byakuya Kuchiki is the same, using Shunko to transfer to, behind Zamari. So did Byakuya Kuchiki, very quickly, slashing towards Zamari in front of him. At this moment, behind Byakuya Kuchiki, a new Zamari reappeared. Double ringing turns using ringing turns, coupled with a special step to create a clone. This is Zamari, a unique skill that no other Espada can. I saw that the two avatars of Zamari, holding knives together, stabbed Byakuya Kuchiki. After the long knife pierced Byakuya Kuchiki's body, but, for an instant, Byakuya Kuchiki appeared, not far from him. Zamari turned his head and looked at Byakuya Kuchiki. What they stabbed was just a piece of Byakuya Kuchiki, a coat. Byakuya Kuchiki was there, and said blankly, Sora Zen, although he was very reluctant, he was forced to learn this unique step by the guy. Seeing my double ringing, I couldn't beat the Byakuya Kuchiki in front of me, and Zamari was there, very angry. Although his face was very calm. But the anger in his heart is already burning. So Zamari raised the knife in his hand and slashed at Byakuya Kuchiki. I saw two people there, constantly switching body shapes. Use Shunko and Shangzuan to fight each other. In a flash, he has already attacked many times. When the two were separated again, Byakuya Kuchiki was there, as always, looking at Zamari with a condescending feeling. At this moment, Zamari, in his heart, saw his eyes even more resentful. Obviously, after resisting so many attacks from him, it can be said that he is equivalent to his strength. Why does he have to look at himself with that kind of eyes? Unable to bear the look in his eyes, Zamari squatted down there, then put his knife flat on his chest. I saw that he was holding it, and the handle of the knife was lifted up one by one with his fingers. When the knife was completely released, the knife was suspended in front of his chest. At this time, Zamari's brain began to turn laterally, when it was completely level with his shoulders. Zamari sang there. Quite it. Sanga Sanga. After he chanted, his weapon was released, and the knife immediately began to bend, making a click sound. When it turns into a pentagon, continue to turn inside. At this moment, around Zamari, mist is also rising. When Zamari appears again in front of Byakuya Kuchiki. I saw a Zamari 627 with dozens of eyes all over his body, appeared there. At this time, he touched Zamari, but he said there, your failure is not because of your arrogance, but because of the difference in strength. And Byakuya Kuchiki, who was there, did not speak. Just staring at the changed Zamari's eyes. I saw Zamari's eyes, with two pupils, expanding. Byakuya Kuchiki, too, quickly published it, and Shunko moved away. However, Byakuya Kuchiki was still a step slower. An eye-shaped pattern has appeared on Kuchiki's white calf. At this time, Byakuya Kuchiki was suddenly shocked. Because the leg where the pattern appeared was no longer under his control. I saw Zamari, but he was there, and said very proudly. My eyes, everything I see, are all under his control. In other words, everything I see with my eyes is under my command. And now that leg on your body is already mine. Chapter 305. Zamari's control failure. Byakuya Kuchiki heard it, after Zamari said so. Byakuya Kuchiki felt his legs based on his own feelings, indeed, he was no longer under his control. Just when Zamari is about to act, Byakuya Kuchiki raised the sharp knife in his hand and cut off the tendons on his leg. Seeing what Byakuya Kuchiki did and Zamari was there, he was also surprised. And here, Zamari said there, sure enough, you are a calm enough person. I can actually do such a thing without hesitation. However, if your body is completely controlled by me, you can still cut off a few arms. At this time, I saw Zamari's eyes, and his pupils began to enlarge again. On the other hand, Byakuya Kuchiki continued to use Shunko to move quickly. After Byakuya Kuchiki moved several times in a row, Zamari also discovered that his own eyes seemed to be unable to keep up with Byakuya Kuchiki's speed. So, Zamari looked towards Sato Yasutora and Gantbine who were lying next to him. At this time, Zamari's pupils began to expand rapidly. At the same time, on the foreheads of Sato Yasutora and Gunterbane, the pattern of the eyes also appeared. Seeing two people, they stood up all at once, and then they came to Zamari's body and confronted Byakuya Kuchiki. Ha 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 ha. Zamari was there, ha ha laughing. Your speed is very fast. Although my eyes can't keep up with you, these two people are now under my control. Come on, just let the person you want to save and knock you down. This ending should be pretty good too. Hearing what Zamari said, Byakuya Kuchiki was still there, looking at Zamari blankly. And it seems that he has the same expression for Sato Yasutora, Gantbine, and Byakuya Kuchiki in front of him. Although they were seriously injured, they still had a little consciousness. After knowing that I was controlled by others, I was very annoyed. But because the injuries were too serious, they could not resist at all. What's more, even if they are now intact, Zamari's ability, as long as he is hit, can't resist his control. Controlled by Zamari, Sato Yasutora and Gunterbane ran towards Byakuya Kuchiki from two directions. Although the two were seriously injured, Zamari said there, my control and command do not care whether he is dead or alive, let alone his injury. They who are in front of you will go all out and take out their most powerful tricks to attack you. You are ready to accept the cruelest punishment. And as Zamari's voice just fell, Sato Yasutora's right fist at this time, the devil's hand had begun to accumulate power, and he smashed toward Byakuya Kuchiki. At this time, Byakuya Kuchiki also quickly used Shunko to avoid Sato Yasutora's attack. And here, Gunterbane, also wearing boxing gloves, smashed over at the same time. Byakuya Kuchiki used Shunko to move quickly, avoiding the attacks of the two of them. The movement speed of the two people is also very fast, and their current state is equivalent to their peak state without injury. Moreover, under Zamari's control, they have no scruples, it can be said that they are attacking with all their strength. And Byakuya Kuchiki, for their attacks, also quickly avoided. And at this moment, controlling from behind, Sato Yasutora and Zamari of Gotei were there again, shouting triumphantly. I don't know what it feels like to look at a friend like you and treat yourself like this. Byakuya Kuchiki was just there, looking at Zamari coldly, and did not speak. Byakuya Kuchiki, still as cold as ever. And Zamari saw the look of Byakuya Kuchiki. Suddenly he was very angry again. The most unbearable thing Zamari can bear is the look in Byakuya Kuchiki's eyes. That kind of arrogant, disdainful look in all eyes. Sato Yasutora and Gunterbane continued their rapid attacks. At this time, Sato Yasutora even used his strongest trick of the devil. And Gunterbane also opened Shikai to release his weapon. Seeing two people, they both used their strongest Wang Lejiao move. At this time, I saw Byakuya Kuchiki, who was also singing there. Following the chant of Byakuya Kuchiki, I saw 6 rays of light released from the two people. A square mask shrouded them there. And at this time, no matter how Zamari uses his own thinking to control, shout loudly from him. And Sato Yasutora and Gunterbane stood motionless. Zamari's face also began to change, a little panicked. What did you do? Why do they look like this? Kido, the 6 ways of binding skills. At this time, Byakuya Kuchiki finally spoke. Ton. Chapter 306. Cherry Burial by Byakuya Kuchiki. Advertise here. However, Byakuya Kuchiki's tone was as calm as ever, and his eyes were as cold as ever. It seems that everything can't make him feel a little flustered. Facing such a person, Zamari felt a panic in his heart. Your skills, I already knew just now. After passing my own experiment, I also feel that you control the intensity of others. So, my Yongxing is absolutely beyond you and controls the intensity of people. And now, you can no longer command them. Hearing what Byakuya Kuchiki said, Zamari was there, but he was a little at a loss. However, Zamari did not believe that his ability would be defeated. Zamari was there, shouting desperately. It's not 630 possible. Move me quickly, move me quickly. It was in Zamari, where he screamed desperately, when it seemed a little crazy. Bankai, let it go, Senbon Sakura. Following Byakuya Kuchiki's Bankai, I saw Byakuya Kuchiki, with the tip of his knife down. Then let go of his hand, and his knife pierced into the ground. Ever since, so beside Zamari, many cherry blossom trees appeared. Then the cherry blossoms on the cherry trees began to fall down. After the cherry blossoms fell, they flew all over the sky. Zamari looked at the cherry blossoms in the sky, also there, and said in a panic. Even these cherry blossoms, I can control them. At this time, Byakuya Kuchiki still said there. If you need eyes to control when you see, then you now have only 50 eyes on your body, and all you can see is 50 cherry blossoms. But, I have hundreds of millions of cherry blossoms here, how do you control it? However, Zamari at this time was there, constantly releasing his own abilities, trying to control those cherry blossoms. But, as Byakuya Kuchiki said, how could he control the hundreds of millions of cherry blossoms? At this time, these cherry blossoms have become slices of sharp blades, cut on Zamari's body. However, in a blink of an eye, Zamari was buried. At this time, Byakuya Kuchiki had already come, Sato Yasutora and Ganbyan's side, and lifted their body restraints for them. Sato Yasutora and Gunterbyan, their bodies at this time, slowly lay down. At this time, Sato Yasutora had recovered some CDEJ strength, and he was there. Looking at Byakuya Kuchiki, he said, I'm causing you trouble. However, Byakuya Kuchiki still had that expression and that expression. But in the eyes of Sato Yasutora, he already knew that Byakuya Kuchiki accepted his thanks. As for Gunbyan next to him, he gritted his teeth there and looked at Byakuya Kuchiki, but his eyes were full of horror. Of course Gunterbyan knew that the person in front of him was really too strong, much stronger than the one who defeated him, Sato Yasutora. Is this the strength of Captain Shinigami? It is terrible, even Espada is not his opponent. Just when Byakuya Kuchiki and the others were about to relax, suddenly, Byakuya Kuchiki looked to the side. Because Byakuya Kuchiki has already sensed, Zamari's Reiatsu is still there. Even Byakuya Kuchiki, such a person, couldn't help but exclaim. The vitality of Zamari is really tenacious. After cutting the cherry blossoms that I know well, I can still survive. When the cherry blossoms had all fallen, they finally saw what Zamari looked like. I saw Zamari, now like a sphere, protecting his entire body. However, the eyes on Zamari were all blinded. At this time, blood was flowing everywhere on Zamari. But Zamari, who was there, insisted very angrily, and looked up at Byakuya Kuchiki. Yes, Zamari still protected his 6 eyes. And these 6 eyes, Zamari wants to rely on, these 6 eyes are used to control Byakuya Kuchiki's body again. Chapter 307. Behead the 7 Espada. Advertise here. However, when Zamari looked towards Byakuya Kuchiki, suddenly, in front of Byakuya Kuchiki, an extra barrier appeared. However, above the barrier, there is also a pattern of eyes, appearing there. Zamari couldn't believe it, what was in front of him was love. Zamari squeaked there and roared loudly, This is impossible, how can you resist my eyes? However, Byakuya Kuchiki said indifferently there, although your abilities are very powerful, you can't see through Kido, the 86th path, upward chanting. And this point, I have told you a long time ago. Because, through the test just now, I have understood your control intensity, so your ability has been invalidated in front of me. Hearing what Byakuya Kuchiki said, Zamari was there, not only very unwilling, but also very unbelief. Therefore, Zamari at this time is still there, desperately looking at Byakuya Kuchiki with his eyes. Eye-shaped patterns are printed on the front of Byakuya Kuchiki, on the light. At this time, Byakuya Kuchiki was still there, shook his head, and disappeared in place with a move. When Byakuya Kuchiki appeared again, he had already come behind Zamari. At this time, Zamari was there immediately, surprised. Zamari also knows now, and he also has to admit that he is indeed not Byakuya Kuchiki's opponent. However, Zamari still does not want to give up. However, when Zamari turned his head again, Byakuya Kuchiki had already passed by him. Just listening to the sound of pouch, Zamari's chest was already spouting a stream of blood. At this moment, Zamari shouted loudly, Aizen Sōsuke! Aizen Sōsuke! Long live! However, Zamari was unable to shout out a few more times, and his body began to turn into a black mist and disappeared. Zamari of Espada number 7 died in the hands of Byakuya Kuchiki. At this time, Qian Ye was still fighting against Neutra there. The two of them have already fought for a long time, and they are still indifferent. At this moment, Qian Ye constantly waved the knife in his hand, but just resisted. Finally, under Qian Ye's constant attacks, Neutra also revealed a flaw. Not to be missed. Qian Ye also made a prompt decision, slashing at Neutra's body, but a series of sparks burst out. However, on Neutra's body, there were no scars. Qian Ye looked at Neutra like this, and suddenly he was taken aback. He felt now Mickey in his hand. It has indeed been cut on Neutra's body, but what is this feeling? Why is there a feeling of not being able to cut in? At this time, Neutra took a step back, and then looked at the place where he had been cut just now. Ha 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 ha. Neutra was there. Ha ha laughed. Qian Ye, you didn't expect it. My skin is the toughest among espada. The knife in your hand can't cut my body at all. At this moment, Qian Ye didn't speak much, just stared at Neutra coldly. ... For flowers. Indeed, Neutra's skin is indeed very hard. Just now, Qian Ye had already used it, with a lot of strength, he couldn't cut through his skin. Neutra no longer hides its strength at this time. He rushed towards Qian Ye. Since Qian Ye's knife can no longer damage his body, then he has no scruples. Therefore, Neutra and Qian Ye began to fight their lives. At this time, Qian Ye, no matter which direction he cuts to Neutra's body, he still cannot hurt him. Point 0. This also caused Qian Ye to be astonished for a while. Qian Ye didn't expect that even Mickey now in his own hand would not be able to cut through Neutra's defense. Qian Ye also had to admit that Neutra's skin was indeed extremely hard. However, this does not mean that Qian Ye has nothing to do with Neutra. At this time, Qian Ye continued to increase his strength and felt the defensive strength of Neutra's skin. Qian Ye was constantly changing the angle, slashing to various parts of Neutra's body. At this time, Neutra would sometimes evade, and sometimes he would directly carry Qian Ye's attack. Even if the knife slashed on himself, Neutra was still unharmed. At this time, Mickey now in Qian Ye's hand swept towards Neutra's calf. Neutra jumped high, and then threw the sun and moon knife in his hand. Neutra was here, constantly grabbing it, and spinning constantly, forming a sandstorm and blowing strong winds. In this strong wind, the white sand was blown up, covering the sky and the sun. Where? Chapter 308. Qian Ye breaks through Neutra's defense. Advertise here. Even at this time, Neutra's figure is not clear. Hearing, ah, Neutra's sun moon broadsword slashed towards Qian Ye. Qian Ye stretched out his hand and grabbed the big knife in his hand, but then he was there, smiling and saying. Although you said that your body is the strongest espada, Shinigami's knife cannot cut through your skin. But why are there some places where you need to avoid instead of resisting? Suddenly, Mickey now in Qian Ye's hands began to change. Then it became longer in an instant and pierced directly into Neutra's left, 63-0, eye. Neutra's left eye was originally blocked by the mask. I saw Qian Ye's long knife pierced Neutra's blindfold and pierced it from the back of his head. Neutra was there, and he didn't move. Qian Ye looked at Neutra, but he thought to himself, could it be that his brain has been pierced? This should be your weakness. When Qian Ye thought that Neutra had been killed by himself, suddenly, Neutra's sun and moon knife waved again. Seeing this, Qian Ye also quickly stepped back and could not afford to avoid it. After Neutra's attack, Qian Ye was also watching and retreating to a distance. And Qian Ye was also standing there, looking at Neutra who hadn't died. He was also a little surprised. Ha 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 ha. However, at this time, Neutra was there again, and laughed loudly. And there, looking at Qian Ye's expression, he was extremely proud. How? The brain is pierced and still immortal, have you ever seen it? Qian Ye. Neutra said, slowly uncovering the blindfold of his left eye. I saw there was a mask buckled there. But above the mask, there was a round skeleton appearing there. Qian Ye's sword had penetrated there just now. Neutra was there again, and said desperately, Qian Ye. You didn't expect it. Your sword didn't pierce my brain, but just passed by. You want to kill me, you are still too early. Qian Ye was also there, frowned, and then looked at the somewhat triumphant Neutra. Qian Ye also looked down, and Mickey now in his hand was meditating there for a while. But at this time, Neutra did not intend to let Qian Ye think too much. So, holding his sun and moon broadsword, he rushed towards Qian Ye. Qian Ye did the same, using now Mickey in his own hands, and began to chop at each other. At this moment, Neutra also has the upper hand. Because Qian Ye couldn't cut his defense, let alone defeat Noi. And Neutra is thinking about it the same way. After seeing Qian Ye and unable to break through his defense, he was relieved and boldly began to attack Qian Ye. At this time, Qian Ye was constantly thinking about it. How to break open Neutra's defense. But at this moment, what did Qian Ye suddenly think of? I saw that the now Mickey in Qian Ye's hand also began to deform, but I saw that there were many gaps in the knife. At this moment, I saw that Qian Ye waved lightly, and a wound appeared on Neutra's arm, and blood was still flowing. Seeing this, Neutra also hurried back, looking at Qian Ye with some very surprised eyes. Neutra also didn't expect at all that he would be hurt. You know, for so many years, Neutra's body has never been hurt in any way. How is this possible? Looking at Neutra's surprised eyes, Qian Ye smiled slightly there and said. Although your body is very strong, and has high defenses, it is not completely unbreakable. Just like just now, isn't it already cut? Neutra heard Qian Ye's words, and suddenly became angry. Ha 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 ha. However, After licking his wound, Neutra laughed loudly there. Do you think it hurts me like this? Come on. Just let you see and see, I'm great. After speaking, Neutra's sun and moon broadsword in his hand slashed towards Qian Ye. Qian Ye resisted his attack while feeling his power, as if it was increasing. At this moment, Qian Ye has mastered how to cut him. After a fierce battle between the two, they saw more and more wounds on Neutra's body. 4.9. But at this moment, Qian Ye's body still didn't have any scars. Kurosaki Ichigo, who was watching the game next to him, was surprised by the parallel. They didn't expect Qian Ye's strength to be so powerful. You know, Neutra just beat Kurosaki Ichigo very badly. Come on, Qian Ye must defeat him. At this time, Kurosaki Ichigo, who was still there with serious injuries, shouted very hard. Hearing Kurosaki Ichigo's shout, Inoue next to him also started to cheer for Qian Ye. Chapter 309. Each shows its ability. Compete against each other. Advertise here. And Nailu, who was on a high place, also clenched her fists, cheering for Qian Ye. Qian Ye heard these people, and they all cheered for themselves desperately. Qian Ye was also there, smiling slightly. It seems that their performance makes them worry about it. They need to be serious. At this time, Qian Ye looked at Neutra and said, we have been playing for too long, so let's show some real skills. Otherwise, even if we fight for 3 days and 3 nights, it will be difficult to distinguish the outcome. Neutra was still there, looking at Qian Ye with a playful expression. But after hearing Qian Ye say this, he also began to become serious. Just now, they did all retain their strength. Because Neutra's weapons have not yet been liberated. And Qian Ye is the same, there is no Bankai yet. Neutra was there at 23, looking at Qian Ye coldly, and then said, if this is the case, there is no need to be here anymore, the game is no longer necessary. So, Neutra too, was the first to be there and began to sing. Pray, holy crying mantis. I saw that Neutra at this time had already liberated the weapon. His weapon has turned into one, with the top of his head facing the moon. The arms became 4 arms, with sickles growing on their hands. Qian Ye was there, his eyes narrowed slightly, while Kurosaki Ichigo beside him shouted loudly. Captain Qian Ye, be careful, this guy is very strong. And how could it become 4 arms? I felt there, Kurosaki Ichigo of Neutra Reiatsu was also worried for Qian Ye. And Inoue was also surprised there. Only Nailu next to her was still cheering hard. Seeing Nailu shouting there, Qian Ye felt warm in his heart, and then turned to look at Nailu. Nilu, don't try to cheer for me so hard. I'll make my voice hoarse after a while, don't worry. He won't worship me. At the moment he turned his head, Neutra rushed up. Neutra waved, and the 4 sickles in his hand slashed towards Qian Ye. At this time, Nailu was listening to Qian Ye's words, but suddenly saw that the 4 sickles behind Qian Ye were slashing towards Qian Ye, and she was shocked. He pointed his hand forward, but couldn't say a word in his mouth. And Qian Ye continued to smile at Nailu, as if he hadn't noticed Neutra's attack on him. At this moment, Nailu finally shouted out there. Brother Qian Ye, be careful behind you. Hearing Nailu's shout, Qian Ye didn't seem to care. Qian Ye just moved under his feet. 4 sickles in Zhang Neutra. When it was cut down, there was already an afterimage there. When Qian Ye appeared again, he had already come behind Neutra. The long knife with the notch was also cut down. A blood ditch was cut out of Neutra's back, and blood kept flowing. Neutra too hurried forward. Oh, avoided, the knife edge gets deeper and deeper. At this time, Neutra was also very horrified and looked back at Qian Ye. How did you guy become so fast? I said, I'm going to be serious, you'd better show your skills, otherwise, I'll be defeated soon. Qian Ye said. After listening to Qian Ye's words, Neutra did not laugh this time. Because just now, that movement of Qian Ye was really beyond his expectation. Moreover, Neutra also did not see how Qian Ye avoided him, that knife. Moreover, this is not the case, Qian Ye came even more, behind him, he slashed himself again. Such an action was completed in a flash. At this time, Qian Ye waved the long knife in his hand. I saw that the long knife was still stained with Neutra's blood. Neutra was there, so angry, staring at Qian Ye fiercely. Neutra was also very surprised, obviously he had liberated his weapons and turned into a holy crying praying mantis. The attack power was also increased by 4 times, and Qian Ye 630 was cut at the back by Qian Ye 630. Neutra also did not dare to be careless, thinking that if he liberated his weapons, he would be able to completely defeat Qian Ye. However, Neutra also told herself that there would never be any flaws, allowing Qian Ye to seize the opportunity. Neutra has always had great confidence in the defense of his own skin. Of course, Newt at this time is also beginning to worry that Qian Ye's long knife can destroy his own defense. Neutra did not hesitate anymore, and waved the 4 sickles forward. At this time, he not only attacked strongly, but also paid attention to avoiding Qian Ye's attack. Just as he thought in his heart, he must never give Qian Ye another opportunity to let Qian Ye attack him. However, at this moment, Qian Ye was defending, the 4 mirror knives accelerated their attack, while thinking there. Suddenly, Noitra also caught a flaw, and 4 sickles slashed towards Qian Ye's face. Chapter 310. Unbreakable Defense. Advertise here. Qian Ye swung the knife up horizontally, blocking all the 4 sickles. Just when Qian Ye thought that he could completely withstand the attack, he suddenly felt a cold in his abdomen. Qian Ye also hurriedly withdrew back, looking at his stomach. A blood ditch had been opened. And at this moment, Kurosaki Ichigo, beside him, said worriedly, "Captain Qian Ye." At this moment, Inoue also saw the way Qian Ye was injured. I didn't expect it, but what shocked them even more at the moment was Noitra in front of them. 6 arms grew out of his body, and among the 6 arms, all of them had the same sickle. Qian Ye just now was scratched by the newly grown sickle in his arm. However, the wound was not deep. Qian Ye was there, but looked coldly. Noitra changed into a 6-armed appearance, which was also a shock. Ha 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 ha. Noitra saw himself, cut Qian Ye, and laughed loudly there again. This is Noitra, who has scratched Qian Ye for the first time since fighting Qian Ye for so long. Ha ha ha. At this time, Noitra laughed again. I thought you would never get hurt. Didn't you expect that the blood flowing out is also red? However, the blood you have left is far from enough, and I need more blood to wash away the humiliation I have suffered. Noitra said while waving, and the sickles on 6 arms rushed towards Qian Ye. When all 6 arms came out, Noitra's Reiatsu also increased 6 times, and the strength and speed also increased. With every knife at this time, Qian Ye felt very powerful with Qian Ye's strength. Qian Ye had to use Shunpo to get out of the battle circle with Noitra. Then he pointed the sword forward and sang there. Bankai, Juyulianfeng, question mark, QG, plus, %. Qian Ye instantly strengthened Reiatsu and resisted Noitra's forward momentum. And Noitra can only watch from there. Qian Ye conducts Bankai. Qian Ye's appearance changed after a cloud of mist was covered. The now Mickey in her hand turned into the shape of a 7-colored bird. And on his body, there is a 7-color bird shrouded in him. Qian Ye was there, looking at Noitra coldly. Ha 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 ha. Noitra, who was there, laughed and said, as Bankai finally. This should be you, the strongest state now. I must beat you. Noitra was also talking, raising the 6 sickles in his hand and rushing towards Qian Ye quickly. Then the sickle slashed on Qian Ye's phantom. When? With the sound of the moment, the heavy blow was bounced high. Noitra was there, looking at Qian Ye in astonishment. Noitra couldn't believe it. When his sickle slashed on Qian Ye's body, the shadow of the 7-color bird was actually blocked. Noitra himself, of course, knows that, just now, it was his all-out effort. But Qian Ye didn't speak, or looked at Noitra with cold eyes. Noitra attacked for the first time and did not take advantage, so this time he raised it high again, and the 6 sickles slashed towards Qian Ye together. At this moment, the phantom of the 7-color bird on Qian Ye slammed into the 6 sickles. And put those 6 sickles. Flew out. Noitra followed and flew out and fell to the ground. Seeing Qian Ye motionless, he beat Noitra so miserably, Nailu cheered there. Brother Qian Ye, you are awesome. Qian Ye, you are the strongest. Hearing Nailu's call, even Qian Ye, who was calm-minded, couldn't help blushing slightly. This Nailu is as innocent as a child. The feeling it gave Qian Ye was very pure and innocent. Kurosaki Ichigo, who was lying there, was used by Inoue at this time, and he was healed by the double sky flying shield. After a period of treatment, Kurosaki Ichigo also sat up slowly. Just like that, I was inside the mask, watching the battle between Qian Ye and Noitra. At this time, Qian Ye released Bankai, and then stood there, letting Noitra attack. Noitra was also unable to break Qian Ye's mask again. Kurosaki Ichigo was there immediately too, and yelled excitedly. That's it, Wang Hao, Captain Qian Ye. Kill him. You completed the beheading of Iltra. Get event reward. Spiritual power plus 100. At this time, Qian Ye only glanced at Kurosaki Ichigo, but did not speak. Kurosaki Ichigo lowered his head and secretly said, this guy. I dare to look at myself with this look. After I recover from my injury, I must challenge him. As long as I defeat him, I can become extremely powerful. At this time, Inoue Orihime, while healed Kurosaki Ichigo, while watching there, Qian Ye, who was already Bankai, couldn't help feeling the man in his heart. Qian Ye's skills are so powerful, does it mean that she can ignore Kurosaki Ichigo and the others will be killed by Aizen? Chapter 311. Inoue Orihime's release. Advertise here. And I don't have to worry about all my partners and relatives leaving her. As long as Qian Ye is there, maybe there is no need to worry about Kurosaki Ichigo and the others. Maybe with Qian Ye's strength, he can really compete with Aizen Yu. At this time, thinking of these Inoue Orihime, the corners of his mouth also began to smile. When Kurosaki Ichigo, who felt Inoue's mood changed, turned his head to look around and went to Orihime. Also on Inoue Orihime's face, I saw the long-lost smile. At this time, Kurosaki Ichigo's face also began to soften. And there, he said lightly, Inoue Orihime. In fact, we can all protect ourselves very well. You don't have to carry these things by yourself. You don't have to bear such a lot of pressure. 630. You have to trust us, you can do it. Inoue Orihime was there, looking at Kurosaki Ichigo, with tears of joy flowing on his smiling face. Inoue Orihime is now finally relieved. If you really don't use it, and you are under Aizen's control, that would be great. You know, these days and how Orihime lived, only she knows. Looking at Inoue Orihime, Kurosaki Ichigo said, "You are my closest people. As long as you can live, I am willing to do anything." Kurosaki Ichigo was also taken aback there, and then also laughed, nodded and said, "Yeah. We are friends." The two people looked at each other there, and both laughed at each other. At this time, Qian Ye was fighting with the six swordsman Neutra. Nailu, who was standing on a high place, CDEJ, also stopped cheering for Qian Ye at this time. Because Nailu has clearly seen that since Qian Ye used Bankai, Neutra is no longer his opponent. Neutra's six sickle hands were unable to break through Qian Ye's defense at all, and the matter was also turned into a shocking reversal. Qian Ye's long knife could not break through Neutra's defense. But now, it was reversed. Even if Neutra used six sickles to attack Qian Ye continuously, they couldn't break Qian Ye's defense. This made Neutra, they yelled hysterically, "This is impossible. How can you have such a strong defense? You know, my six sickles have increased, but the six-fold Reiatsu, how can it not be cut?" Qian Ye was there, and Han said, "6 times the Reiatsu, but that's all. Let's not talk about the difference between you and me, Reiatsu. As long as these 7-color birds are there, I can be equivalent to 10 times more Reiatsu. So, you are destined to lose in my hands." Neutra was there, shaking his head and stepping back. "How is this possible? This is absolutely impossible. There must be a way to cut through your defenses." Quote. Neutra stood there, but the 6 sickles were separated up and down. At this time, I saw Neutra's body at this time, suddenly beginning to emit a yellow halo. And this yellow light caused all the surrounding spiritual power to float towards him. It was not obvious at the beginning, but after a short while, those spiritual powers were already strong enough to look like yellow ribbons visible to the naked eye. At this time, Qian Ye did not attack. Because Qian Zhao knows that when he meets a person, he wants to defeat his strongest state. Quote. No matter what trick Neutra will use, Qian Ye is there waiting for him quietly. Neutra is still there, constantly absorbing the spiritual power around him, and his Reiatsu is also there, growing significantly upwards. And the yellow halo on Neutra's body is getting brighter and brighter. The spiritual power around him has almost been absorbed by him. IFL. At this time, Neutra roared there, and his Reiatsu quickly released to the outdoors. At this time Qian Ye, as well as Kurosaki Ichigo and Inoue Orihime, are all in the light. Then Reiatsu came to the mask, and the mask even had cracks. Fortunately, it still resisted Reiatsu's attack. At this time, Qian Ye's 7-color bird light and shadow were there, swaying slightly. But he was not dispelled. Qian Ye just looked at that. Reiatsu was rising Neutra. I was also a little surprised. I didn't expect that this guy Neutra could absorb the spiritual power around him and turn it into his own use. Although as long as it is Arankar, things can be done. But with such a large amount of absorption, only Neutra, one person can do it. When Neutra absorbed a certain amount of spirits there, the sickle in his hand began to change. The blade of the sickle was long and wide, and the handle was much thicker than before. Qian Ye observed carefully, the changes of those sickles seemed to increase the attack power. At this moment, Qian Ye held Mickey now in his hand. There, I looked at Neutra seriously. Chapter 312. The Power of Neutra. Advertise here. Regarding Neutra's performance, Qian Ye didn't recognize it until this time. He was a strong one. Unexpectedly, your 5th espada is so powerful. Fighting with you makes me very excited. Then, it's time for the final battle, come on. When Neutra absorbed the spiritual power to the upper limit, the yellow halo on his body was shining like the sun. At this moment, suddenly Neutra disappeared in place. When he reappeared, he had already come to the top of Qian Ye, and 6 huge sickles slashed down. Qian Ye backed away, Shunpo turned on, avoiding the attack with speed. And Neutra, the speed at this moment has also increased, and it is still above Qian Ye's speed. Seeing the huge sickle, it was about to slash Qian Ye's body. At this time, Qian Ye waved Mickey now in his hand, and then resisted the 6 huge sickles attacking him. However, due to the speed being too fast, a flaw was still exposed, and it was chopped by a huge sickle, above the light and shadow. All of a sudden, Qian Ye was forced to fly upside down. The strength of Neutra has indeed increased a lot since absorbing spiritual power. Qian Ye, who flew upside down, hurriedly adjusted his figure and stopped in the air. Looking at such a powerful Neutra, Qian Ye's eyes were slightly there. Then, hanging her own now Mickey by her side. At this time, I saw Qian Ye's body, and suddenly aura exploded again. All the objects around him were pushed far away. And under Qian Ye, in the land of white sand, a huge pit had appeared. At this time, Qian Ye had already opened up, and his other ability instantly opened up. After the instant open, the speed and strength, as well as spiritual power are all doubled. After an instant opening, Qian Ye waved now Mickey and cut to Neutra. Neutra raised 6 sickles and began to resist Qian Ye's attack. But Qian Ye, after the instant opened, how can the strength be the same? The sword flew Neutra away, and hit a huge pillar in the distance. The pillar collapsed all at once. Qian Ye watched there, the dust brought up by the collapsed column. Suddenly in the dust, a mirror knife flew out, and Qian Ye immediately avoided it. However, the sickle flew halfway, but it slashed back at Qian Ye, and Qian Ye had to evade again. At this time, Neutra, who had rushed out of the dust, continued to quickly attack Qian Ye with 6 sickles. Each sickle, like cutting through the void, brings tremendous power. And this time, the Reiatsu on Qian Ye's body also solidified his phantom. When the sickle was cut up, it was bounced. Neutra became in its current state, and it was still unable to break Qian Ye's defense. And Qian Ye, Mickey now in his hand at the moment, also waved, and cut off one of Neutra's arms. Neutra, whose arm was severed, hurriedly stepped aside and looked at Qian Ye coldly there. At this time, Qian Ye said, "Your 6 arms are really an obstacle. I have thought about it just now. If you want to defeat you, you can only cut off all 6 of your arms." Neutra was there too, and said coldly, "You have no chance, you will cut my next arm. For flowers, do you think that if I cut off my arm, I can't help it?" At this time, I saw that Neutra's severed arm began to squirm. Then, with the constant squirming, a new arm grew from the broken arm. Then on the arm, another black sickle grew. Looking at Neutra like this, Qian Ye sighed there, fighting a spada, which really caused a headache. Unexpectedly, the broken arm can grow out again. 0. However, Qian Ye was not too surprised there, and then said, "It seems that if you cut it off at one time, one of your arms is no longer good. You can only cut them off." And this time, it was when Qian Ye and Neutra were fighting. Coming to Hueco Mundo, Captain Shinigami and his men who supported them, after saving Sato Yasutora, Ishida Ryu, and Abarai Renji. After treating them one after another, they returned to Soul Society. At this time, Byakuya Kuchiki, who was also in prison, rescued Kuchiki Lucia. Seeing his blank-faced eldest brother, Rukia Kuchiki was also very moved there when he appeared in front of them. Nothing to say, Byakuya Kuchiki took Kuchiki Lucia and was about to leave here. However, Rukia Kuchiki was unwilling, so she left like this and she wanted to find Kurosaki Ichigo. Byakuya Kuchiki had no choice but to say to Rukia Kuchiki, "There is only this I can do. Next, it is your own decision. I have no right to interfere." Rukia Kuchiki was there, but nodded and said, "Thank you for saving me." Fan. Chapter 313, Neutra's Unwillingness. Advertise here. However, before Byakuya Kuchiki could speak, Rukia Kuchiki said again. "However, I cannot leave like this because my friends are not safe yet. I have to be with them." Byakuya Kuchiki was expressionless as always, and said coldly, "If this is the case, then I will leave first." Before Rukia Kuchiki spoke again, Byakuya Kuchiki disappeared. Captain Shinigami returned to Soul Society, and now the battle here is only the battle between Qian Ye and Neutra. After driving Qian Ye, the speed of 633, Yitra was also a bit unable to keep up with him. In a blink of an eye, 4 arms have been cut off. However, Neutra can always regrow all his arms in the first time. It made Qian Ye tirelessly, and the two continued to fight like this. At this moment, Inoue and Kurosaki Ichigo watched the fight between them from a distance. Because just now, the relationship between Neutra's absorption of spiritual power, Reiatsu's growth has made it impossible for them to be in the battle zone close to the two. As a result, they retreated far away, and after Qian Ye opened instantly, they couldn't get closer. However, he has cured most of Kurosaki Ichigo's injuries. At this moment, Kurosaki Ichigo came to Nilu's side and brought Nilu to a safe place. At this moment, Qian Ye didn't want to be distracted by Nilu. Now Qian Ye is gone, worry about the future. At this time, Neutra has no other skills. Because this is already his last trick. At this time, Neutra knew that if he still couldn't defeat Qian Ye, then he really didn't know, what else could he do to defeat the man in front of him. Qian Ye, Reiatsu, which opened in an instant, almost doubled several times. At the beginning, Neutra could barely maintain, but later, he couldn't keep up with Qian Ye's speed. And the wounds on Neutra's body are getting more and more serious. But Qian Ye's body was still the same as before, without any wounds. Neutra stood there, breathing heavily, and looked at Qian Ye in front of him. At this moment, Qian Ye, now Mickey in his hand, hung by his side just like that. And Reiatsu on him is still rising. Neutra also really didn't understand. The person in front of him had no spiritual power just now. But now Reiatsu is almost close to Aizen Sōsuke's level. Is this guy really human? However, Neutra yelled again, raised 6 sickles, and rushed towards Qian Ye again. But Qian Ye started to hold Mickey now with both hands, and waited like this. Neutra rushed forward. At the moment Neutra rushed forward, Qian Ye waved his hands forward, and when the sand pillar rose up into the sky, it blocked the sight of Kurosaki Ichigo and Inoue. Kurosaki Ichigo and Inoue Orihime are also beginning to get nervous. They don't know what happened in the dust. Who wins and who loses? They don't know. After a while, after the dust fell, Nilu was there, grinning. Kurosaki Ichigo and Inoue were also there to relax. Because they saw that Qian Ye was still standing there, but Neutra, who was opposite him, was half kneeling there. At this time, a pool of blood is still increasing on the ground. It can be seen that Neutra was seriously injured with this knife. Neutra did the same. He slowly raised his head, and saw a bloody sulcus with deep bones appearing in his chest. And Qian Ye stood there, looking at Neutra faintly. At this time, Neutra was forced to release the state of arms liberation. The crescent on the top of the head was also chopped off, leaving only one of the 6 sickles. Moreover, the wound of Neutra's fierce mouth was still bleeding from everywhere. At this time, Qian Ye looked at Neutra and said, "You have already lost." Qian Ye said as he turned around and walked towards Nailu. However, Neutra gritted his teeth there and staggered to stand up. Neutra said intermittently, "Wait a minute, I didn't lose, the battle between us is not over yet." At this time, Qian Ye was also standing there, turning around slightly, looking at Neutra who was crumbling there in 4.9, a flash of surprise flashed in his eyes. When Qian Ye turned around, he had already lifted Bankai. Qian Ye was holding now Mickey and stood there. However, Neutra raised the mirror knife in his hand again, step by step, and stomped to the ground, rushing towards Qian Ye. Neutra at this time also remembered what happened before. In Neutra, it has not yet become a spada. Once when fighting with a group of Arankars, when they were about to be killed, they were successfully attacked by an Arankar and seriously injured. Chapter 314. Inoue Orihime was caught again. Advertise here. At this time, Nailu, still looking like an adult woman, rescued him. But Neutra, not grateful to Nailu, but asked Nailu why she saved herself. However, Nailu asked Neutra, "Why is that man already begging for mercy? You still want to kill him?" "Huh, what's the reason for this? I killed them if I wanted to kill them. Since I took part in the battle, of course I won't stop dying." However, after Nailu glanced at him, she ignored it. Seeing Nailu's expression, Neutra was there and said angrily, I don't like you at all." Nailu glanced at him again, still ignoring him, and continued to look at the book in her hand. At that time, Neutra wanted to kill 23 Nailu. It was just the wound on his body that made him stop thinking. In the days after that, Neutra killed Nailu as Ishin wanted. Finally, with the help of Zael Aporo, Nailu's mask was successfully destroyed, making Nailu look like a child. Recalling his own character before, Neutra's eyes were more determined, and he rushed towards Qian Ye. The two people were there, but they passed by at once. At this time, Qian Ye had already come behind Neutra. At this time, Neutra had another stab wound on his half-upward body. At this time, Neutra could no longer maintain his body standing, and slowly fell down, turning into a black mist and disappearing. Qian Ye also took his own now Mickey back to her waist, then turned around and walked towards Kurosaki Ichigo. Seeing that Neutra was defeated, Kurosaki Ichigo was there, and he let out a long sigh of relief. Sure enough, Qian Ye's strength is still very powerful. Neutra was also defeated in his hands, and at this moment Kurosaki Ichigo's injury has also healed. At this time, Nailu suddenly rushed into Qian Ye's arms. Then, there was a loud laugh. "Brother Qian Ye, you were so powerful, you actually defeated him. That despicable person is destined to end like this." Qian Ye glanced at Nailu, then smiled and said, "I know, he caused your current appearance, can you change back to the original appearance?" Nailu shook her head. "I can't yet. Although I have recovered some memories, the mask on the top of my head has not been fully recombined, so I can't change it back to its original state." Hearing Nailu's words, Qian Ye nodded there. And Inoue Orihime, this time is just about to come, Qian Ye's side. Suddenly, a gust of wind blows, and the white sand is blown all over the sky. Beisha blocked the sight. Mao seemed to hear a woman scream. However, after the dust hit the ground, I saw that Inoue Orihime had already been caught by an Arankar. Qian Ye and Kurosaki Ichigo both pulled out their weapons at this time, and then attacked the one who grabbed Inoue Orihime. However, the two of them were still a step late, and the Arankar suddenly disappeared. Qian Ye and Kurosaki Ichigo were two people, but they still had no time to save Inoue. Inoue Orihime. Kurosaki Ichigo was there, shouting very angrily. At this time, Kurosaki Ichigo can only blame himself for being too careless. Actually let Inoue Orihime, by his side, be taken away by Arankar. Qian Ye came to Kurosaki Ichigo's side, and then said, "Kurosaki Ichigo. It's not the time to be discouraged. They must not have gone far now. Let's go and chase Inoue Orihime back now." Kurosaki Ichigo listened to Qian Ye's words, and then nodded. Good. Qian Ye and Kurosaki Ichigo were just about to walk forward. At this time, Qian Ye looked back at Nailu, who was standing there. "Nilu. There is no danger here now. Your two brothers have also started to rush over here, and they will be here in a while." "Where is Nailu?" There is some aggrieved look at Qian Ye. "Brother Qian Ye, 633 this time, don't you plan to take me with you?" "Nilu. The opponent's strength is too strong, and you will be dangerous by my side. After I defeat them, I will see you again." Qian Ye had no choice but to say this to Nailu. Nailu looked at Qian Ye, but her tears were in her eyes and she kept spinning. Brother Qian Ye, alright, then you go, but you must defeat them. Nailu said to Qian Ye. Seeing Nailu's expression, Qian Ye just smiled and disappeared in place. And Nailu, after Qian Ye disappeared, was there, crying loudly. However, at this moment, Pixie and Don Dakaka also came to her in time. Thanks and Don Dakaka, after knowing what happened here, they had no choice but to comfort Nailu. And at this moment, in Hueco Mundo. But it happened, another thing. Chapter 315. Aizen came to Karakura town. Advertise here. Aizen Sōsuke used his power to seal all the black cavities leading to Hueco Mundo. They trapped Qian Ye and Kurosaki Ichigo here, the purpose is to prevent Qian Ye and Kurosaki. Aizen also knows Qian Ye's strength very well. Of course Aizen knew that Qian Ye was the only one who could rival him. And now Aizen Sōsuke's purpose is to go to Karakura town. Because Aizen plans to build Wang Jian in Karakura town. Then use this as a passage, and then continue to occupy Soul Society. At this time, Aizen's plan was already known to Soul Society's captain Yamamoto Motoryu Sai Shigekuni. In order to avoid the residents of Karakura town, Lu Jaiju was affected. Yamamoto Motoinajisai Shigekuni asked Urahara Kazuki to create a turning circle. Then make a copy and replace it with the fake Karakura town. Thus, all the original residents were put into deep sleep. Then transfer the real Karakura town and the residents to Soul Society. The purpose of this is to, after Aizen Sōsuke came to Karakura town in this world. The captains of Gotei 13 are able to fight with all their strength. The captains in the present Karakura town all stood there, except Qian Ye and Kurosaki Ichigo, as well as Byakuya Kuchiki. The powerful people are all there waiting for the arrival of Aizen Sōsuke. And at this moment, I saw black cavities appearing one by one in the sky. In the black cavity at the top, Aizen Sōsuke walked out slowly. And the captain, standing in front of the black voice, watching the coming out. Aizen Sōsuke said in a deep voice, I finally caught up. Aizen Sōsuke, on the other hand, looked at the captain indifferently, walking towards him, and said there, why do you say that the time has caught up? Actually, I have known for a long time that this is not the real Karakura town. However, none of this matters. Since you are going to hit Soul Society anyway, it's better to be here and kill you directly, and then to go there. The construction of Wang Jian is the same. Seeing Aizen Sōsuke, he looked very confident in his eyes. Even the captain of the team, Yamamoto Motoyazai Shigekuni, did not dare to despise him. The other captains also raised their vigilance immediately. And just as Aizen Sōsuke was speaking, the three black toons next to him opened one after another. And from inside, 3 teams walked out. And looking at these fresh faces in front of them, these captains don't know what the strength of the other party is. Although I know that they are one of Espada, I have never heard of them. At this time, the captain changed his cane, and a long knife appeared in his hand. You all retreat now. The captain at this time drew out his long sword, and then sang there. All the heavens and the earth are turned to ashes. Ryujin Jaka. At this time, I saw a fierce flame burning beside him, and the blazing high temperature made people unable to approach. All the strong men are watching his performance. At this moment, as the captain and deputy captain of Soul Society, they all know the strength of the captain very well. There were some of them, and they retreated back in a panic. I saw the captain, but slowly raised this long knife that was burning with raging fire, and then swung it forward. I saw the flame on the long knife, and it began to fly forward. And when I came to Aizen Sōsuke, in front of them, it was suddenly divided to the 2 sides. In addition, Aizen Sōsuke, Tusen Kanami, and Ichimaru Jin were directly surrounded. A huge wall of fire was formed, surrounding them. It's so hot, so hot. Ichimaru Jin was there, but he kept complaining. I said, Captain, you are too messy. How can we participate in the battle like you are? At this time, Aizen Sōsuke was there, staring straight ahead, his expression remained unchanged. Just there, he said lightly, it doesn't matter. Since he doesn't want us to take action, then we will wait here. And that outside, Aizen Sōsuke, but continued there. Since the captain, he doesn't want us to go out to fight Wang Haohao. That means that this battle does not require us to intervene, and we can already win the battle. Ichimaru Jin listened to Aizen Sōsuke's words, but did not speak. There was no joy or anger on his face, but his eyes flashed with consternation. For the strength of Espada, Ichimaru Jin does not fully understand. To say that the person who really knows Espada is of course only Aizen Sōsuke alone. Outside are the captains of Gotei 13, but while facing these captains, there is also a strong team of captains. Aizen Sōsuke, so calmly, thought that the 3 Arankars outside, and the people they were carrying, could wipe them all out. Chapter 316. Qian Ye was intercepted for saving lives. As Aizen Sōsuke, Ichimaru Jin's subordinates were surprised in their hearts. However, Ichimaru Jin also did not say anything. Because of Aizen Sōsuke, this has always been the case. It can be said that everything Aizen does is within his grasp. Since Aizen can say so, there should be no problem in doing it. Aizen Sōsuke, Tusen Kanami and Ichimaru Jin, who were trapped in the flames, stood motionless at the moment. And Arankar, who is outside, is now in a tight town. The captains of Gotei 13, the battle is also about to start. At this time, in Hueco Mundo, the captured Inoue Orihime was at the 5th tallest tower at this time. And Ulquiorra, who was sent to the secondary space by Grimmjow, also broke the space wall with a punch, walked out from there, and came to Inoue Orihime. Although Inoue was arrested again at 633, her mood and state of mind had changed dramatically at this moment. Kurosaki Ichigo's perseverance and Qian Ye's strength made her muster the courage to change her destiny. Facing the powerful Ulquiorra, he was also completely at ease on Orihime. At this time, Kurosaki Ichigo and Qian Ye are also quickly chasing Inoue Orihime. Just now, because of a momentary carelessness, Inoue Orihime was accidentally taken away again. Qian Ye and Kurosaki Ichigo have also started to fly to Inoue Orihime, wanting to rescue Inoue Orihime again. And through the sound transmission, Aizen Sōsuke let Ulquiorra temporarily take charge of all affairs in Hueco Mundo. In fact, just let him hold the footsteps of Qian Ye and Kurosaki Ichigo, don't let them both leave Hueco Mundo easily. Ulquiorra, of course, also understands Aizen Sōsuke's intentions. Therefore, Ulziola was the order, Lutherban, the burial ministry, in front of the 5th tallest tower, blocking the footsteps of Qian Ye and Kurosaki Ichigo. Luther was originally an Aaronkar with a sheep's head, and his strength was very powerful. When he saw Kurosaki Ichigo and Qian Ye, after they came here, he brought a group of Aaronkars. Standing in a row there, waiting for the arrival of Kurosaki Ichigo and Qian Ye. When Qian Ye and Kurosaki Ichigo appeared, they immediately shot and stopped both of them. After Qian Ye and Neutra fought a battle, a lot of spiritual power has been consumed at this moment, and when facing the many Aaronkars, they are also quite useless. At this time, Qian Ye, of course, knew that, although he still had enough energy to kill all these Aaronkars, but in that case, when facing Ulquiorra again, he might be at risk of losing. Neutra is already so strong, how about Ulquiorra's strength? When he came, Kurosaki Ichigo had already noticed that Ulquiorra's Reiatsu had appeared. He and Qian Ye have already discussed, want Qian Ye to restore strength along the way. Because Kurosaki Ichigo knows that with his own strength, he may not be Ulquiorra's opponent. Therefore, in the face of these, Lutherban's subordinate Aaronkar, Qian Ye chose to retreat. And Luther was just fond of this, so he launched a series of attacks on Qian Ye, not wanting him to have a chance to breathe. Even if these Aaronkars were sent to die, Qian Ye's spiritual power would have to be consumed. And Luther is going all out to deal with Kurosaki Ichigo, who has recovered from his injuries. Facing the powerful Lutherban, Kurosaki Ichigo is also desperately dealing with it, coupled with the large number of his subordinates, Aaronkar. Kurosaki Ichigo and Qian Ye were actually stopped by them. Qian Ye and Kurosaki Ichigo also know that it seems that in a short period of time, they can't get rid of them at all. Just when Qian Ye and Kurosaki Ichigo were in a bitter battle, suddenly a giant long-toothed dragon slammed into the sky. Aaronkar of Qian Ye and Kurosaki Ichigo, who attacked the sky, was defeated. Qian Ye didn't need to look at it, just when he saw this weapon, he knew who came here. Qian Ye watched there, and Abarai Renji said, Abarai Renji. It looks like you have healed. Abarai Renji was there, looking at Qian Ye and said, I was rescued by the captains and then treated for a while, so I came a little late. These miscellaneous soldiers, just leave it to me. Can you be alone? Qian Ye asked too. I'm not alone. Boom. As Abarai Renji's voice just fell, only a loud bang was heard from the city wall. The city walls collapsed one after another, and the Aaronkars standing on the city walls, because they were unprepared, fell one after another and fell down. After the dust fell, Sato Yasutora also stood there, looking very vigorous. Ha ha ha, I didn't expect that your speed is also quite fast. Abarai Renji was there, and he laughed and said. Since he was rescued, he recovered from treatment and recovered his previous spirit. Chapter 317, Qian Ye needs support. Go alone to save Inoue Orihime. Advertise here. At this time, Kurosaki Ichigo was entangled by Lutherban. He couldn't do it for a while, so he made time to greet them too. However, with the two of them joining, the situation has changed. The Aaronkars under Lutherban's men could not withstand the attacks of Abarai Renji and Sato Yasutora. And their arrival also gave Qian Ye some breathing time. Qian Ye also took it immediately, a healing pill. In addition to healing injuries, healing pills can also add spiritual power. Qian Ye felt that his spiritual power was slowly recovering, and Qian Ye also knew that it would take a while before he could recover to his peak state. At this time, Lutherban fended off Kurosaki Ichigo's attack, and then retreated to the city wall. Luther Ben looked at the fallen Aaronkar corpses under the broken city wall, and couldn't help but angrily said there. You guys, they were so caught off guard when they met someone special. However, Luther did not have time to reprimand them, but rushed to Kurosaki Ichigo swiftly. Lutherban certainly knows now that his most important task is to block Kurosaki Ichigo and Qian Ye here. If you can kill them all, then it is naturally the best. If you can't, it's good to stop them for an extra second. Moreover, focusing on the consumption of Qian Ye is their most critical task. Therefore, Luther was in command, and more Aaronkar launched a fierce attack on Qian Ye. At this time, Abarai Renji and Sato Yasutora below were also fighting there. Those Arankars who are endless, although their strength is not strong, but the number is very large, always seeming to be inexhaustible. However, Abarai Renji and Sato Yasutora must also play a trick to stop all these Arankars. At this time, Kurosaki Ichigo was also fighting with Lutherbin. Kurosaki Ichigo said to Qian Ye, Captain Qian Ye, I'll deal with this guy, and I will ask you to go there. Qian Ye glanced at Kurosaki Ichigo, then nodded, and disappeared in place. However, Luther said there, I don't have one, I intend to let you leave here now. Therefore, Luther quickly pursued Qian Ye. Just when Lutherbin was about to rush towards Qian Ye, only a dark figure flashed past, and a black knife had already slashed towards Lutherbin. Lutherbin also hurriedly raised the knife to stop the black knife from slashing him. At this time, Lutherbin was coldly looking at Kurosaki Ichigo in front of him. Are you sure you want to do this? You will die like this. Kurosaki Ichigo did the same, saying coldly there, you don't have that qualification yet. At this time, Lutherbin was the only one who looked at Kurosaki Ichigo coldly. Therefore, Qian Ye at that time has disappeared. Luther was the same, turning around slowly, looking at Kurosaki Ichigo and saying, since you are powerless to stop him, then hand him over to Master Ulquiorra to deal with it. As for you, since you stopped me, then you must be conscious of death. Kurosaki Ichigo said very directly. I said, want to kill me, you don't have the qualifications yet. At this time, the remaining Arankar entourages had been stopped by Abarai Renji and Sato Yasutora. For flowers. After Qian Ye left there, he quickly ran towards the highest place of the fifth tallest tower. And at the fifth tallest tower, Ulquiorra and Orihime are talking about something. Regarding Inoue Orihime, Ulquiorra was completely unable to understand the fact that he had restored his original confidence. Since Inoue Orihime was caught here, he began to observe Inoue Orihime's every move, observing her psychological condition. I have felt it, Inoue Orihime was already preparing to die. She wanted to use her own death to protect the safety of Kurosaki Ichigo, as well as all his partners and relatives. However, the current Inoue Orihime gives Ulziola a completely different feeling. Since Qian Ye and the others came here, Ulziola found that Inoue Orihime actually had hope of living. So Ulziola said to Inoue Orihime, your choice is wrong. If you insist on your choice from the beginning, maybe they will all survive, and you will die. And now you believe them and can save your lives. Then you will die, and they will die as well. Really, if before, maybe I would believe you. Because of your strength, it is too strong. I think Kurosaki Ichigo and the others cannot defeat you. However, the current Inoue Orihime gives Ulziola a completely different feeling. Since Qian Ye and the others came here, Ulziola found that Inoue Orihime actually had hope of living. Where? Chapter 318. Inoue Orihime's confidence. Qian Ye's confirmation. So Ulziola said to Inoue Orihime, your choice is wrong. If you insist on your choice from the beginning, maybe they will all survive, and you will die. And now you believe them and can save your lives. Then you will die, and they will die as well. Really, if before, maybe I would believe you. Because of your strength, it is too strong. I think Kurosaki Ichigo and the others cannot defeat you. But now, I don't think of 633s like that. Since Qian Ye and the others came to Hueco Mundo, everything that happened made me slowly change my mind. Kurosaki Ichigo desperately tried to save me. Qian Ye is so powerful that even Neutra was defeated in his hands. And all this proves that they have the strength to save me and the ability to protect myself, so I choose to trust them. Ulquiorra was also very angry after listening to Orihime's words. All this made Ulziola feel a little weird. Because Ulquiorra has always been a very calm person. As a scientist of Hueco Mundo, he and Zael Aporo are completely different in essence. He is calmer and stronger. At this moment, Ulziola walked towards Inoue Orihime slowly. Ulziola, after approaching Inoue Orihime, raised one of his hands and reached out to Inoue's head. All delusions of nothingness will be like the moon in the mirror. As long as the mirror is broken, the moon will become nothingness. You believe what is in the mirror is a wrong choice. Just let me break this mirror in your heart. While speaking, Ulziola stretched his hand to Inoue Orihime's head. At this moment, Ulziola suddenly felt that a powerful pressure appeared behind him. Ulquiorra's eyes widened slightly, because Reiatsu was too powerful. Boom. With a loud noise, the floor was hit by a person, and only one figure flew up. Ulziola turned halfway, and looked at Qian Ye who had already rushed up. At this moment, Ulziola was there, looking blankly, and did not speak. At this time, Qian Ye looked at Inoue Orihime and smiled. Inoue Orihime, Kurosaki Ichigo asked me to come and rescue you. What I want to tell you is that we will never fail your trust. Qian Ye and Inoue Orihime, after speaking. But his eyes started to become cold, and he looked at Ulquiorra next to him and said. Leave him or I will kill you. Ulquiorra was there, still saying blankly. When Aizen Sōsuke left, let me temporarily manage Hueco Mundo. However, for Inoue Orihime, there was no order to kill her. Therefore, I won't kill Inoue Orihime. But well, since you came here, Aizen Yuasa said about killing you. Ulquiorra also said, pulling out his knife. At this moment, Qian Ye was also Wei Wai. He didn't expect it, but Ulquiorra pulled out his knife just as soon as he saw himself. I didn't expect that you drew your knife as soon as you met. For a strong opponent like you, there is no need to do any more trials. If you want to defeat you, of course you have to go all out. But Ulziola looked at Qian Ye and spoke truthfully. Therefore, Qian Ye also drew out his own knife and blocked Wu, and Urquiola slashed at his own knife. While Qian Ye was blocking, behind Ulziola's knife, he said. It looks like you think you already have the strength to fight against me. Ulquiorra disdainfully said, even if you can temporarily have the same Reiatsu as Aizen Sōsuke, I will never be afraid. And just when Qian Ye and Ulquiorra were preparing to fight there. In the sky above the present Karakura town, except for Aizen Sōsuke, Tusen Kanami, and Ichimaru Jin surrounded by a wall of flames. The rest of Arrancar are still confronting these captains, glaringly at each other. At this time, I saw a very old Arrancar with a 4.9 beard and a beard, but he took a step forward. However, this Arrancar, after also taking a step forward, stood there, as if waiting for something. At this moment, the 4 young Arrancars behind him also opened up the black chamber at this time. As soon as the black cavity was opened, bones of the same length flew out from the inside, and piled up there. Just a short time, a seat made of bones appeared there. I saw this older Arrancar, but he took a step back and sat there. Chapter 319. True and False Karakura Town. But he put his hands on his shoulders, and said arrogantly there. Since Aizen-sama is stopped by the wall of fire, then I'll take the command here. The 4 young Arrancars behind, but immediately shouted, Master Bailorgang, we will always be your servants. This Arrancar, called Baileygang, was also there, looking around the top of Karakura town. He also remembered the conversation between Aizen Sōsuke and Yamamoto Motoinagi Sai Shigekuni just now. So, Baylor just said there, since this is not the real Karakura town, it is a fake that was transferred from Soul Society to Soul Society. Then there must be 23, and the 4 pillars are here. I saw Baylor Gang at this moment, but he waved his hand. Then let us find them out. As soon as Baylor Gang's fraud sound fell, I saw one of his subordinates, Arrancar, blowing his whistle there. Suddenly, 4 more black cavities appeared in 4 directions in the sky. But these 4 black cavities are there, constantly tearing apart. And the mouth became bigger and bigger, and then from the 4 black cavities, 4 huge and different animal-shaped Arrancars crawled out. One of them is in the shape of a lizard, one is in the shape of a gorilla, one is in the shape of a praying mantis, and the other is unclear. So, its 4 monster-shaped Arrancars came to 4 directions and stood in the void. When they touched a place, the place suddenly appeared, and a square pillar came. These 4 square pillars are Zhuangjiejieju. Because of their existence, Unohana Kazuki was able to transfer the place of the Lost Soul world to this place, and copy it into a fake Karakura town. Of course, if these 4 pillars are destroyed, the fake Karakura town will definitely be there, and therefore disappear. The real Karakura town will be teleported back and appear here. That Bailorgang knew this, so he summoned these 4 monsters from Hueco Mundo. And prepared to destroy these 4 huge square pillars. I saw the 4 monsters, either with mouths, claws, or even tails. They are constantly destroying these 4 huge square pillars. It's not good, they are going to destroy the 4 pillars. At this time, Shinigami Yamada was there, yelling in a panic. Yamada's fat body, full of fleshy face, even his expression began to become distorted when he yelled. Captain, the Zhuangji pillar has been found. And it is being destroyed, what should we do? Once this pillar is destroyed, everything becomes troublesome. At this time, Yamada, who was still yelling there, was already in a panic. Yamada looked at the Shinigami around him, and saw that they were indifferent, but he was even more anxious. What the hell are you doing? Get into action quickly. Never, let those 4 monsters destroy the pillars. Otherwise, wouldn't we be destroyed here? In this way, Yamada was there, yelling, and he kept getting up. At this time, the captain looked at it squintly, and said there. It's such a flustered guy, so uncontrollable. In Dai Yamada, the Shinigami captains next to him also took a look at Dai Yamada. So someone said, Big Yamada. Don't yell there anymore, it's really shameful. After Oyamada heard what the Shinigami captains had said, Oyamada was also there, and was stunned. Yamada looked at these, and the Shinigami captains said, what's the matter with you? Don't you plan to take care of Karakura town anymore? 637. Just let the 4 monsters be destroyed by the 4 Arrancar Sutras. Then we are still here, what's the point? At this time, the big Yamada was moving there, with some affection and reason, and talked to these captains. At this time, Hitsugaya Toshiro was there, looking at Yamada. Stop yelling there, Yamada. Yamada looked at Hikaya Toshiro, and said very suspiciously there. But, Captain Hitsugaya. Are we really, don't care? And the captain at this time was there, and said in a low voice, it's such a irritable guy, how can you not send someone to handle such an important place? At this time, the captain looked into the distance, in the direction of the 4 pillars. At this moment, 4 figures appeared above the pillar. Seeing these 4 people, they only cut and killed the 4 monsters, Arrancar. Chapter 320. The Ugly Narcissistic Arrancar. Advertise here. However, these four figures are Madarame Makaku, Ayasagawa, Hira and Gunsaki. As soon as they appeared on the pillar, they killed the monster Arankar with a single knife. At this time, Yamada also opened his mouth wide, and was speechless for a while. After a while, Yamada finally recovered. But he opened his eyes and looked at Hitsugaya Dong and asked, Captain Hitsugaya. Did you guys know this a long time ago? But Hitsugaya Toshiro nodded there and said, yes. We already knew it. At this time, Yamada looked at the Matsumoto Rangaku next to him again, and asked in a low voice, you don't know it too. Matsumoto Rangaku was there too, smiling and saying, I know too. And I told you before. It's just that you at that time, were eating pancakes very happily, and didn't seem to take my words into your heart. Hearing what Matsumoto Rangaku said, Yamada was also stunned. Then the face suddenly became like a red apple. He came up with an oolong big Yamada, and turned around, not daring to look at others again. As soon as Baylor saw himself, the four monsters Arankar summoned were wiped out in an instant. Baylorgang didn't change his face, and said dismissively there. Since the four little bugs are not enough to destroy the pillars, then I will send out and let the four dragons go over. As soon as Baylor was speaking, he began to roll the names there again. Fendor, Bo, Kurufun, Abalama, you four, go and play with them. As soon as Baylorgang's voice fell, the four Arankars also responded. Yes, your lord. As a result, the four Arankars ran quickly in four directions. At this time, the four Shinigami standing on the four pillars. When I saw that there were four more Arankars flying over to me, they also began to become very serious. Soon, Madarame Makaku was on the wave. However, Ayasagawa faced Abalama. Hira was against Kurufong. Gun Samu is facing Fendor. The four pairs of people and horses are also there to hate each other. On the four pillars, Madarame Makaku, who was facing the wave, laughed there. It looks like a good guy came here, how about it? Do you have the confidence to be able to beat me? Hearing Madarame Makaku's provocation, Bo was there and said blankly. A person like you will never experience it. What does true strength mean? Madarame Makaku was also there for a moment. What he didn't expect at all was that this wave was still a doctrine. And Madarame Makaku said, you are really a boring guy, then come on. Hurry up and end the battle. I really don't have much interest in boring guys. However, Bo did not pay attention to Madarame Makaku's impatience and ridicule. But a flash rushed towards Madarame Makaku. On the other side, Ayasagawa faced Abalama. Although Abalama is a burly man, he painted a woman's dress. Wearing a woman's costume, and every move, even the manner of speaking, is imitating the manner of a woman. His appearance is very ugly, and it looks a bit disgusting. When Ayasagawa saw Abalama for the first time, he closed his eyes and no longer opened them. But Abalama was there, chattering a little, watching Ayasagawa talking non-stop. Abalama is always there, showing off how beautiful, how confident, and how noble he is. And all of this made Ayasagawa there, a little bit unbearable at all. In such a state, even the green stubble that has just been shaved off, but still exposed, is still there. Even if he is a man, he is extremely ugly. She was still there, dressed as a woman, and said she was pretty. Ayasagawa was there. Although she endured it and did not speak, her eyes were closed tightly. At this time, Abalama seemed to be there, chattering non-stop. When Abalama discovered that Ayasagawa was there with his eyes closed and not looking at himself, Wang Haojiao, he was suddenly angry. So Abalama was there, shouting loudly, you fellow, you disrespect people so much, I'm talking to you. You dare not look at me. Quote. Ayasagawa was there, and said in disgust, I even look at something ugly, and I feel that it's blaspheming my eyes. Hearing what Ayasagawa said, Abalama was taken aback for a moment, and then suddenly became angry and blue. Then he yelled frantically, it's really unreasonable. You dare to laugh at my beautiful face, I must crush you to pieces. As Abalama spoke, he slammed his fist swiftly and hit Ace River. Chapter 321. The Beauty of Narcissism in the Ace River. Advertise here. At that time, Ayasagawa also raised his sword to resist Abalama's attack. Although there is no weapon in Abalama's hands, his fighter gloves are very hard. Abalama hit the Ace River with a punch. Ayasagawa also felt that his power was very powerful. Obviously, a strong man of this size has to pretend to be a woman, which makes Ayasagawa even more incomprehensible. However, Ace River is always, eyes closed. However, this also hindered him from observing the opponent's actions. He was guarded by Barama, went around his back, hit Ayasagawa's back with a punch, and was shot and flew out. Ayasagawa also hurriedly adjusted his figure in the air. However, before Ace River adjusted, Abalama was behind Ace River again. As soon as Abalama appeared, he punched the Ace River again. Boom. With a bang of 637, Ayasagawa was beaten and flew out in the other direction. In this way, just like kicking a ball, Ayasagawa's body was beaten by Abalama. In the end, Abalama kicked Ayasagawa again, hitting Ayasagawa's chin, and flew into the sky. And at this moment, as early as in the sky, he got there first, and waited for Ace River. The arrival of Abalama raised his fists again, clenched them together, and smashed them down. Ace River, who was unprepared, was hit in the back by Abalama, fell down and hit the pillar, lying motionless there. Slowly fell, but Abalama on the pillar was there, looking at Yasugawa very contemptuously and said, "The really ugly people are like you, do they care about the good looks of others, or those who are dirty in their hearts? A truly beautiful person, CDEJ, is pure and kind in heart, a person just like me, and you bastard, you deserve to be beaten to death." However, it was in Abalama's words that he hadn't waited for him to finish. On the ground, Yasugawa, who was lying motionless, trembled, and then slowly climbed up. "You guy, dare to blaspheme the word, beauty. It's beautiful to be seen. It looks very comfortable, and it looks very comfortable. It looks like I want to keep watching, but you guy, I just took one look, but I really don't want to look at it again. A guy who is so ugly, still praised there, his beauty really makes me feel like nausea." Suzugawa stood up slowly, but his eyes were very sharp, looking at Abalama. But Abalama looked at Ace River and suddenly laughed. "Ha ha 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 ha, have you finally realized my beauty and started looking at me with your eyes open?" Hearing Abalama's words, Yasugawa almost fell to the ground. There, he shouted loudly, "You guy, are you going to be shameless? The guy with the dirty heart, the guy with the ugly heart, your appearance is as ugly as your heart. Come on, just let me come and end your ugly life." At this time, Abalama was there, laughing at Ace River. At this time, Ace River also became serious all at once. And there, looking at the ugly Abalama, said, "Okay. Since you really don't know what beauty is, I will tell you. Bankai, let's dance, Vine Peacock." At this moment, Ace River, the knives in his hand suddenly became four, curved like a sickle like a crescent, stacked side by side. Abalama saw the Ace River after Bankai, except that Reiatsu had a little increase. Furthermore, the knife in his hand turned into a strange shape. And for the rest, there is not much change afterwards. It was there and laughed. "Ha ha 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 ha, happy to die, your strength is nothing more than that." While Abalama was talking, she also ran towards the Ace River. When the fist arrives, Abalama hits Yasugawa's knife with one punch after another. Yasugawa is also tired of defense now. Although the guy in front of him looks ugly, his strength is not weak. Each punch of Abiramar is extremely powerful. And the speed is amazingly fast. Ace River now, even though Bankai has already been carried out, is still there, somewhat reluctantly resisting Abalama's attack. Abalama punched Aya Chouchuanshuan again and again. At this time, Abalama stood there, looking at the Ace River falling on the ground with contempt. Abiramar disdainfully said, "Fighting with an ugly person like you for another second will be an insult to me. Let me come and take your life." So Abalama began to sing, "Liberate, Queen's Waywardness." I saw Abalama at this moment, the pressure formed by Reiatsu next to him, misted up and covered his body. Chapter 322, You Let Me Have a Chance to Release. Advertise here. When Abalama appeared in front of Yasugawa again, his dress was even more exaggerated. Yasugawa almost didn't vomit when he saw him. At this time, Abalama was no longer as angry as before, but looked contemptuous of the world. Abalama looked at Ace River there and said, "As the queen, I now declare that the drama has come to end your ugly life." As Abalama said, he disappeared in place again. Although Yasugawa watched, Abalama was very uncomfortable, but she still had to play with the spirit of 12 points to guard against his attack. But Abalama, who had become a queen, had doubled its attack power at this time, and the speed was astonishing. Before Yasugawa could react, he was punched again and left the pillar. Like a cannonball, he landed in the jungle beside the pillar. However, before Ace River could relax, Abalama's feet had already stepped on his back. But Yasugawa suddenly vomited a mouthful of blood. Ace River almost fainted. For Abalama, Yasugawa could no longer resist with such a powerful attack. Abalama saw that there was no more Ace River who had the ability to resist. On the other hand, Abalama grabbed Yasugawa's neck with one hand and lifted him up. Therefore, Abalama looked at Ace River very contemptuously and said, "Ugly people. Now you know what it means, truly beautiful." Yasugawa's eyes were still closed, and he couldn't see any more, the Abalama in front of him. Yasugawa was afraid that he couldn't help it, and would vomit. When Abalama saw Ace River's appearance, she still hated her beauty so much. The anger in Abalama's heart is even more difficult to suppress. Around them, something similar to black vines was climbing up quickly. Soon they were enveloped in a 100-meter radius around them. This is like a very black cover, covering both the Yasugawa and Abalama inside. And in the middle of this black cover, there is a flower with white flowers, and the flowers are temporarily there. At this time, Abalama looked at Aya Shiokawa and said, "This is my personal space, my queen's world. Here, your Reiatsu, any information about you will not be noticed by others." Quote. "Now, let me be here to end your ugly life. No one will know how you died. And for you a nasty guy, you should die like this." When Yasugawa heard Abalama, his eyes suddenly brightened. "Really, I really want to thank you for creating such a very good environment for me." I saw that as Ace Kawabi spoke, his eyes began to turn green. And began to sing there too. "Let's dance. Green light cardinals." At this time, Abalama, who was still holding a Yasugawa's neck, was suddenly forced out by a Yasugawa's powerful Reiatsu. When Abalama looked at Ace River again, she was completely stunned. Here, what the hell is going on? Only at this time, the weapons in a Yasugawa's hands also began to change dramatically. For flowers, weapon from Ace River, there was a green light, like a vine, wrapped around Abalama's body. After wrapping them all up, a Yasugawa's body is still blooming, with a green light. What are you? What is this? At this time, Abalama asked with some horror. But Ace River was there, saying very plainly, this is a beautiful world. The beautiful green represents infinite vitality. You are doomed to lose and die here. Feeling the huge Reiatsu of the Ace River, Abalama kept trying to break free from the shackles of the green vines. However, Abalama was unable to do it. At this time, Suza's river suddenly disappeared in place. When Ace River appeared again, he had already come behind Abalama. But Abalama stood there, no longer struggling like before. A second later, on his chest, blood was already spurting out of wine. At this time, Abalama also fell slowly. And there, looking at a Yasugawa dying, said. Unexpectedly, you guy is still hiding, such a powerful trick, this should be your unique trick. Actually, this is just my Bankai. Bankai, can your Bankai be liberated for the second time? Yes, I'm different from others. My Bankai, at the very beginning, was only released in a half. And I don't want them to know my Bankai ability. And the sealed environment you just now gave me a chance to release him. Fan. Chapter 323, A Powerful Wave. Madarame Makaku who does not give up. Advertise here. What a terrible guy. After saying this, Abalama gradually turned into a black mist and disappeared. And the other three people at this time, their battles were the same, and they were almost over. Although Kira and Gun Samu fought very hard, they also defeated all of their opponents. The four of them also succeeded in protecting the safety of the pillar. However, just when everyone was relieved, suddenly, on the western pillars, it happened. The sound of 64-0 collapsed. Boom. With the rumbling sound, the captains all looked there at the same time. There is Madarame Makaku, the pillar guarded by it. At this time, Madarame Makaku was already lying there, motionless. However, his opponent was standing in front of him. His opponent is a huge face, a long mask of a giant. The power is very strong, and such an opponent, Madarame Makaku, was defeated in front of him. The pillar was also interrupted, and only half of it remained. At this time, because the pillar was interrupted, the barrier was also destroyed. The real Karakura town is slowly returning. At this time, Madarame Makaku, even though he still remembered to resist, he couldn't do it at all. At this time, Madarame Makaku had been knocked to the ground with 2 punches and could no longer move. But when Bo raised his foot, he wanted to trample Madarame Makaku to death. Suddenly, someone who came by was hit and flew out. At the same time, another person stood a long knife there and prevented the return of Karakura town. When Madarame Makaku, see clearly in front of him, came to this person. I realized that it was Captain Komamura who just punched Fibo. And what prevented Karakura town from returning was Shinigami, who made the name and shot, and was also a good friend of Madarame Makaku. At this time, the stage was pulled up, and Madarame Makaku quickly ran away. At this time, Bo had already started to take out a very short knife from his arm. The knife that Bo took out was so short because it was compared with his huge body. The sword was pulled out slowly. Then said there. Breathe. Giant wrist whale. Bo also immediately liberated the weapon in his hand. I saw that Bo also began to change. The whole body began again, growing violently, and became a very tall giant. And his fist has become the size of a house. Seeing the wave, the shooting field is also fast, pulling Madarame Makaku, ready to leave here. However, Madara Kazuki waved his hand and opened the hand of the applause. Then Madarame Makaku said, how can I escape here so easily? But, do you have any hidden moves? Exichang asked helplessly. No, how could I have that kind of thing? Madarame Makaku said. If that's the case, leave here quickly. That guy is the one who can hit with 1 punch, and the captains are all flying. How could we be his opponent? Said after the show. However, Madarame Makaku, still very stubborn, stood there and did not leave. At this time, the wave saw the appearance of Madarame Makaku. Another punch hit Madarame Makaku. There is nowhere to hide, Madarame Makaku can only watch, hitting himself with a huge fist. At this time, a figure appeared again and grabbed that huge fist. Then he resisted Bo's huge fist. As a result, the two forces competed against each other. This is of course a shot of the village captain, who caught the giant's fist. I saw that when Patkun fell over his shoulder, he threw the giant to the ground. At this time, he also drew his own knife in the shooting of the village. Bankai, Black Rope Scourge King. Under the huge Reiatsu, a samurai who was wearing armor and changing his height into a giant, so tall, appeared in front of Bo. Seeing such a huge samurai, Bo was also very surprised. At this time, Bo opened his mouth wide, ready to launch his best Sero. It's just that the samurai Pluto raised his hands and forcibly slammed Sero back. Sero exploded in Bo's mouth, and Bo's body also slumped down 4.9. Bo didn't dare to look confidently, and patted the village captain in front of him. And shouted loudly there. How is this possible? How is it possible? There is this kind of power. However, Komamura didn't give Bo a chance to continue talking, and controlled the samurai King Ming, so he slashed it down with a single sword. But the wave at this time is no longer there, and the ability to resist can only stand by and watched as he was hacked to death by the Ming King and turned into a black mist, and then disappeared. After defeating Bo, Captain Komamura's weapon changed back to its original shape, and King Ming disappeared into the air. Chapter 324. Ishida Yulong's Method of Burying and Killing. Advertise here. At this time, Bailorgang was there, with his palms on the armrests above the throne, which consisted of skeletons, and was constantly exerting force. Seeing his four subordinates, all bowed to Shinigami's hands, made him very angry. At this time, in Hueco Mundo, Qian Ye is playing against the fourth Espada and Urquiola. Qian Ye and Ulziola, you come and I do not give into each other, it is also a bit difficult to distinguish. Ulquiora's strength is much stronger than Neutra. Regardless of speed or strength. And more importantly, Ulquiorra is much calmer than Neutra. It seems that no matter what the situation is, Ulziola can treat it calmly. Even if the opponent's strength is very strong, Ulzio 23 is still in a calm analysis. As a scientist, he is very precise about everything, to the point of fine detail. In the process of fighting Qian Ye, he was constantly calculating. And this payment is on the periphery of the fifth tallest tower, and those Arankars who are constantly fighting, Sato Yasutora and Abarai Renji are also constantly cleaning up and emerging Arankars. But for the two, they knocked out one and brought two again. After it was destroyed, there were only 4 or 5 lands, just like that, and they appeared endlessly. At this time, Abarai Renji and Sato Yasutora both felt a little tired. However, these Arankars are still appearing constantly. And just when the two of them, seeing as soon as they were about to send these miscellaneous soldiers into the air, one by one, they continued to fly. But seeing in the white sand, a huge head giant suddenly appeared. This is the one, guardian of the white sands. After being defeated by Qian Ye before, he now appeared in front of Abarai Renji and Sato Yasutora. What the guardian of white sands fears most is water attacks. But Sato Yasutora and Abarai Renji, neither of them can attack by water. The two were there, continuing to attack the guardian of the white sands. At this time, Qian Ye was also following Ulquiola, constantly fighting there. Qian Ye slashed Ulquiorra open. Qian Ye was there, looking at Ulquiorra with a solemn expression on his face. Just when Qian Ye and Ulziola were fighting fiercely in it, I saw a huge Arankar, but he broke through the wall and ran in. Then Arankar was there, looking at Inoue Orihime standing aside. Ha 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 ha. It was there, ha ha laughed, and looked at Ulquiorra and said. Ulquiorra, this woman, I can kill it without any problems. Inoue Orihime saw that this huge Arankar was also there, and he was afraid to move. Just when Arankar was about to start with Inoue Orihime. Suddenly behind him, another person jumped out of the huge hole just hit. I saw the spirit bow in his hand, releasing a spirit arrow. And the spirit arrow hit the man's shoulder all at once. He shot the giant man to the ground. The giant man at this time was also there, glaring at him, looking at Ishida Yulong who had jumped in. Where did you come from? You dare to attack me? As he said, he slammed a punch at Ishida Yulong who was not far away. But Ishida Yulong jumped up and avoided. Ishida Yulong was avoiding, but after the giant's attack, he turned his head and looked at the big man and said. This place is too narrow, you are fighting here, and you are a little bit incapable of using it. How about this? Let's find a spacious place and fight again. As Ishida Yulong said, he jumped down. And that giant man Arankar, also followed Ishida Yulong, jumped down together. After arriving in the open place, the two men also started, and a fierce battle came. The power of that giant man is very powerful. However, Ishida Yulong's 640 movements are also very flexible. Moreover, Ishida Yulong shot spirit arrows to attack the big man from time to time. The big man, watching Ishida Yulong jumping around, felt that it was really, and felt particularly irritable. At this time, Ishida Yulong had already made arrangements. You have been hit, I am in ambush, and the next step is to announce your death sentence. As Ishida Yulong said, he hadn't waited for the big guy to react. As for the 5 spirit arrows, where they are connected to one point. And at its central point is where the big man stands now. At this time, Reiatsu of Ishida Ryu was also released suddenly. The huge Reiatsu impact washed the body of the man. What? The big man, but was there, began to scream. With the impact of Ishida Ryu's Reiatsu, it also caused a lot of damage to the big man. At this time, Ishida Yulong had already walked back. Chapter 325. Because I am stronger than him. Advertise here. Because Ishida Yulong has already won the victory in this fight. However, just when Ishida Yulong was about to walk forward, he saw the big man and suddenly stood up. However, Ishida Yulong did not pay attention to the big man, but continued to move forward. Just after Ishida Yulong took 2 steps, he saw a red light rising from the feet of the big man. Immediately afterwards, a huge red beam of light surrounded the big man. At this time, Ishida Yulong turned around there, looked at the big man and said, "I'm really sorry, this is obtained from a scientist, specifically to deal with your Arankar mines." Boom. With a loud noise, the big man who was injured by the power of the mine finally couldn't hold on, and began to fall downward. Ishida Yulong looked there, and smiled slightly. "You really are a forgetful fellow." When Ishida Yulong defeated, after that big man Arankar, he jumped up, jumped onto the hole, and came behind Qian Ye. Qian Ye just heard that. There was a loud clanking noise under the cave, and he was still a little worried about Ishida Yulong. Because of the strength of that big man just now, Qian Ye felt that he was still quite strong. After all, it is the 10th Espada, and Yami is among the 10 knives, although he is the last. But after all, Espada's strength should not be underestimated. Although Ishida Yulong's strength is also very strong, but compared with Espada, it is still slightly worse. However, Qian Ye now saw that Ishida Yulong appeared behind him safe and sound, and he was also relieved. Qian Ye smiled and said, "It looks like he has been defeated by you, one." Ishida Yulong also smiled and said, "It's relatively easy to deal with him." When Qian Ye heard what Ishida Yulong said, he was slightly taken aback, and then smiled and nodded. When did this guy start to be so confident? Ishida or Ryu, now that you have defeated this Arankar, then go to Kurosaki Ichigo to help. Maybe he needs your help even more. However, Ishida Yulong looked at Qian Ye with some hesitation and said, "Captain Qian Ye, can you deal with Ulziola by yourself?" At this moment, Qian Ye looked back. "Ulziola. Ulquiorra, he is very strong, but I am stronger than him." After listening to Qian Ye's words, Shitian Yulong was also slightly taken aback. However, Ishida Yulong also nodded, then turned around and left here. At this time, Ulquiorra, his eyes, never left Qian Ye's body. At this time, Ulziola also said, "Are you really sure, don't you need help?" Qian Ye smiled and said, "Then are you sure, don't you need to help?" However, Qian Ye at this time, after finishing speaking, sang very directly. "Bankai, Juyulianfang." Ulziola saw Qian Ye proceed, "Bankai." But Ulquiorra raised the long knife in his hand and looked at Qian Ye blankly. At this time, Qian Ye asked, "What? Are you not going to liberate your weapons?" But Ulquiorra shook his head and said, "It's not time for me now. However, let's talk about it, fight back and fight back." The two of them were talking, and they got together again. Qian Ye after Bankai, and Reiatsu at this time, also increased too much. At this time, Ulquiorra also gradually fell into a disadvantage. Ulziola's knife couldn't be cut at all, Qian Ye's defense. At this time, Ulziola could only defend desperately and dodge Qian Ye's attack. At this time, Qian Ye knew that Ulquiorra was still retaining strength. Although Qian Ye didn't know the reason, Qian Ye's quick attack was to force Ulziola to show his strength. At this time, Inoue Orihime had also stepped aside. After what happened just now, Inoue Orihime was also prepared. At this time, Inoue Orihime was also paying attention all the time, whether there was any around, and the mask rushed over. At this time, Kurosaki Ichigo, who was fighting with Lutherban outside, seemed to be there, and continued to engage in fierce battle with Lutherban. Wong. However, Lutherban at this time had already liberated his weapons. Behind Lutherban, something like a tree trunk was born. On the tree trunk, there are little balls one by one, and they keep falling. And when those small balls fell down, they became, like the masks that Kurosaki Ichigo and the others were fighting together. At this time, Abarai Renji also came, Kurosaki Ichigo's side, and panting, looking at Kurosaki Ichigo and shouting. "These guys, are they made by him?" Kurosaki Ichigo, however, stared closely, and Lutherban, who was standing in the air, spoke. Chapter 326. Qian Ye's strength. Not what we can think of. Advertise here. Yes, it was all made by him. At this time, Sato Yasutora also came to them and said. This is simply endless. Anyway, we have to defeat these and buy time for Captain Qian Ye. Captain Qian Ye is inside, and it's no problem to deal with Ulquiorra alone. However, Kurosaki Ichigo smiled and said, don't worry. The strength of Captain Qian Ye is definitely not as simple as you and me, as you think. However, at this time, Abarai Renji, Yinshi laughed there. Then things become much simpler. We only have to deal with them. No matter how many soldiers there are, they are fearless. Just when Abarai Renji's voice fell off, when he saw Sato Yasutora, he punched him out. Immediately, 640, the Arankar monster that appeared in front of him, was blown out. Sato Yasutora suddenly went out, but it was a little bit, which shocked Abarai Renji. Abarai Renji yelled loudly, Sato Yasutora, can you say hello when you take the shot? It is always such an accident that will scare people to death. However, before Abarai Renji could finish speaking, Sato Yasutora punched Abarai Renji again. A huge shock wave flew towards Abarai Renji. Abarai Renji also swiftly leaned in the sand to dodge. I saw this shock wave, but it was against Abarai Renji's scalp and hit Abarai Renji, an Arankar giant behind him. And Abarai Renji, who got out of the sand, pointed to Sato Yasutora and shouted loudly, You guy, I just told you, say hello when you shoot. At this time, Sato Yasutora looked at Abarai Renji and said, oh. Okay, next time I will just watch and you will be attacked. Sato Yasutora, however, turned his head while speaking, and went on to hit those Arankars with a punch. However, Abarai Renji looked at Sato Yasutora's back and said angrily, this guy is really a boring person. However, Abarai Renji did the same as he said, waving his snake-shaped cannon in his hand to the Arankars. In Hueco Mundo, Qian Ye led the crowd, fighting against Ulquiorra, the Arankars he was carrying, in a fierce battle. And here in Karakura town, Shinigami are the same, and they fought fierce battles with those Arankars under Bergang. Baylor just saw that all of his 4 men were defeated by Shinigami. It was already when the angry Baylor gang was about to stand up and wanted to take action. But he listened to his subordinates, shouting loudly there, my lord. Now we don't need you to do anything, my lord. Sir, please sit there and take a good rest. Let's go and clean up all these Shinigami, all CDEJ. However, as soon as the words fell, I just listened to, swish swish. With the sound of the wind breaking, I saw a few Shinigami, who also jumped out, and looked at the Arankar coldly there. You just said, who are you going to pack? Following the voice, I saw Smashing B, the captain of the 2nd Division, and his lieutenant Yamada. Hitsugaya Toshiro team, and his deputy Matsumoto Rangaku. Also, the other captains, all together, stood opposite those Arankars. At this time, the Broken Bee and the Big Yamada are facing each other, but the subordinate officials of Beilogan, Jiu and Nilg. At this moment, he was still kneeling, and Ju and Nigel, who were in front of Baylorgang, also turned their heads to look at Broken Bee and Yamada who were standing in front of him. What's the matter? Didn't you just say who to clean up? Why don't you talk now? The Broken Bee was a little bit, looking at Gio with compelling aura and said. Seeing that Gio didn't answer, Broken Bee drew out his weapon very directly. Even if you don't speak, I will kill you. At this time, Baylorgang saw Gio and Nigel, ready to take action. But Baylorgang, who was about to stand up, sat down slowly. And there, he said without expression, go. With Baylorgang's permission, Gio and Nigel were a flashback, and disappeared immediately. When Gio and Nigel reappeared, not only had they been pulled out, their weapons had also been slashed towards the Broken Bee and Yamada who were standing there. But at this time, the Broken Bee raised the weapon on his right arm and blocked the attack of Ju. The big Yamada next to him fled to the ground in a panic. Nigel saw the great Yamada run away, when even chasing him away. At this time, Ju was fighting fiercely in the air with Broken Bee. After feeling the speed and strength of G beat, Broken Bee frowned slightly. The Broken Bee at this time also knew that this crazy guy still had some crazy capital. Chapter 327, Big Yamada. Xiaoqiang who can't be beaten. Advertise here. As a result, the Broken Bee was also a little bit more careful. Smashing Bee and Gio are constantly relying in the air, chasing and fighting each other at their respective speeds. At this time, Yamada, who was on the ground, seemed a little worse. I saw that Nigel at the back was chasing Dashin Tien to attack. But Yamada seemed to have no chance to fight back. I saw Yamada, but he was running around frantically, avoiding Nigel's attack. This looks as funny as a novice. At this time, Yamada's chubby body was crawling and running around on the ground. Even Nigel, who was chasing Yamada, began to think that the fat guy in front of him had no ability at all. At this time, Nigel also wanted to quickly end up with Yamada. I saw Nigel at this moment, but he went straight. Shikai released his weapon. But Nigel's weapon has become a colossus. Nigel's body shape has also changed dramatically. His limbs have become sturdy and his body has become burly. The most distinctive feature is that Nigel's nose began to change into a long, elephant-like nose. And that long nose is his weapon. This nose can be extended for a long time to attack Yamada. And the Ju who was in the air, also at this time, opened Shikai and let go of his weapon. And Jiu's weapon turned into Hoya Zunfang. The speed of Ju, who had liberated his weapons, has also increased by a large margin. Ha ha ha, you are fast, but not fast enough. After Jiu's weapons were liberated, his figure also changed. Moreover, Jiu's character seems to have changed. The liberated Jiu looked contemptuously, looked at Broken Bee and said. Just now when I said I was going to clean up Shinigami, were you very unconvinced? And you also said that you want to kill me. Come on, then, I want to see, on what basis do you want to kill me? After liberating the weapon, Jiu's speed has also increased a lot. The Broken Bee at this time was almost completely not his opponent. The Broken Bee is also there, a little tired of defense, there is no chance of attack. Broken Bee's trick is to kill with 2 poles, as long as he is stabbed by the weapon bee on his arm and stabbed in the same part twice in a row. Then, anyone who is attacked will undoubtedly die. However, under the high-speed attack of Ju Bee, he simply couldn't use his chance to attack. And the Broken Bee wants to find, the flaw of Jiu comes, it is simply impossible. The current Broken Bee can only be there and barely defend. At this time, Yamada, who was on the ground, was also in crisis. After the liberation of weapons, Nigel's strength became very amazing. At this time Nigel, not only has his strength increased a lot, but also the long nose after the change has become farther away. Although Yamada was still running forward, he was hit by Nigel's long nose from time to time. But well, fortunately, Yamada's fat body, this resistance is still relatively strong, just like a Xiaoqiang who can't die. Although Yamada was also hit by Nigel's long nose several times. However, looking at what Yamada looks like at this time, it really doesn't matter, what's the problem? For flowers. Seeing this, Nigel at this time was also very annoyed. However, Nigel seems to be a little helpless for this fat man who is more resistant to fights. Of course, Nigel is also impossible, just let go of this fat man running around so easily. For this guy who kept running away, Nigel started somewhat, losing his patience. I saw that Nigel at this time, but swiftly, increased his speed. Moreover, the length of Nigel's nose has also increased, and his strength has also begun to go all out. Point 0. Under such an attack, Yamada was also a little tired of running away. It was not easy to be able to save his life, let alone want to counterattack Nig. However, at this time, the big Yamada was lucky enough to burst into flames. I saw Yamada, but suddenly, he stepped on a stone and was tripped to the ground. Ha ha ha, you fellow, since God doesn't even help you, then go and die. What? No. Yamada also screamed after listening to Nigel's words. Don't do anything, hurry up and die. You fat man. Humph. What are you talking about there? Nigel at this time also suddenly felt that Reiatsu of Yamada was increasing rapidly. Nigel was also taken aback. It turns out that you still have strength. But, does that matter? Nigel spoke, using a huge nose, and slammed at the big Yamada below. From Nigel's point of view, Yamada is already, absolutely unable to escape, his full blow is no longer possible. Where? Chapter 328. Reversing the situation. Reversing defeat is winning. Advertise here. However, when Nigel's, the huge long nose fell, the figure of Yamada suddenly disappeared. At this moment Nigel was shocked in his heart there, and then felt that the crisis came from behind him. When he slowly turned his head, he saw Yamada standing behind him. At this moment, the weapon in Yamada's hand has changed its appearance. It became like a meteor hammer. Smash it off. The head of the 5 elements. Nigel originally thought that with a full blow just now, he could kill Yamada, but at this moment he no longer had the ability to defend. 640. It was smashed hard by the head of the 5 elements. His big body fell to the ground, where there was no movement. However, the great Yamada at this time was looking at Nigel, who fell in front of him, that huge body. Yamada was there and said something very solemnly. You fellow, don't you know that being fat is my taboo? Although I like to talk and laugh very much, don't use fat to talk about me, especially those 3 words. When you say it, you are destined to be defeated by me. However, at this time, Yamada suddenly raised his head and looked into the air. I saw that the broken bee in the air was still fighting fiercely with Gio. But Yamada was there, and laughed loudly. Ha ha ha, Captain Shattered Bee, this guy is too weak, let me deal with the guy who is fighting with you. At this time, the broken bee had no time to pay attention to Yamada. Therefore, the broken bee at that time had already made him a little overwhelmed in the battle against this lucky fight. Watching the air not only beating with G, but also his own captain, Broken Bee. Just now I was a little triumphant, and I was calling Yamada, but it suddenly became quiet. Because Yamada has already seen it, Jiu, who is fighting against the captain, is as strong as the captain. Yamada was there again. After observing for a while, he was also a little worried in his heart. It seems that the captain doesn't seem to be the same. It seems that there is still something he can't match. How can it be like this? That lucky fighter can actually keep up with the captain's speed. Moreover, it seems to be faster than the captain's speed. However, just as Yamada was engrossed in the sky above, the battle between Shattered Bee and Ju. At this time, Yamada suddenly felt that something was entangled in him. But when Dashin looked down, it turned out that it was Nigel's elephant trunk that was wrapped around him. At this time, Yamada was also a little frightened, confused and at a loss. After Yamada froze for a while, but looked at the owner of the elephant's trunk, Nigel said, "You are not dead yet." But Nigel was there, and said angrily, "How can I die so easily?" Nigel was talking, and grabbed the big Yamada, who was entangled by him, and threw it to the ground. But, just like at the beginning, Yamada's body is indeed extremely tough. Being smashed like this by Nigel, he was still unharmed. At this time Nigel was also very annoyed. So, wrapped around Yamada's body, he slammed to the side of the building. Nigel doesn't believe that this big Yamada's body is made of steel. After Nigel threw the big Yamada to the ground, the big Yamada was thrown out and hit a building. The entire building collapsed, and at this moment Nigel also jumped up and stood on top of the ruined building. At this time Nigel also laughed loudly and said, "I want to see if you can survive." However, what surprised Nigel did happen. Just after Nigel finished speaking, a stone slab began to move in the ruins of the building. But the stone slab was pushed up by Yamada. Yamada, who pushed the slate away, was a little nonchalant, unscathed, and patted the dust on his body. At this time, the big mountain stone looked very contemptuously at Nigel, who was standing on the ruins. Hee. The strength of my body is beyond your imagination. Nigelton was also furious when he heard Yamada's mocking words. Without saying anything, he grabbed his 4.9 elephant nose and smashed it at Yamada. The big Yamada at this time dare not let Nigel's long nose be hit. You know, the current Yamada is already suffering from terrible pain. Although it is not deadly enough, if you continue to be attacked by the long nose, Yamada will also fall down due to pain and discomfort. Ever since. As a result, Yamada continued to use that very exaggerated escape method, avoiding the attack of the elephant's trunk. In the air, the battle between Ju and Broken Bee is even more exciting. Chapter 329. Respective battles. Care for each other. Advertise here. This is definitely a very rare hand-to-hand encounter. Both Shattered Bee and Geo have slightly the same weapons in their hands, and they are both short weapons. Moreover, both of them are obviously good at speed. Therefore, the battle between the two of them is also inferior. At this time, the Broken Bee, in terms of speed, is very difficult to compare with the Ju, who has already liberated its weapons. The current Broken Bee is just relying on his rich combat experience to avoid the attack on him by Ju. Yamada saw his captain in such a fighting situation, and he was there, watching the battle in the air very worried. Where are you looking? Don't you understand? Your captain is not an opponent of auspicious beating at all. Just like you, he is destined to die in my hands. However, Nigel at this time was very disdainful, looking at Yamada Dao. What nonsense are you talking about? Do you think that you can kill me? Yamada responded very trivially. Your cheek is indeed thick enough. However, I don't believe that any of my attacks will be of no use to you. Nigel was talking, but he was quietly using his trunk to wrap Yamada's feet. In just a moment, the big Yamada was thrown high again by Nigel's trunk. What? No, don't you know, am I afraid of heights? Quickly let me down. Suddenly Nigel's elephant trunk, the big Yamada who threw up, screamed in horror. And Yamada's exclamation also attracted the attention of Broken Bee. At this time, the Broken Bee also took a look. The big Yamada, who was thrown up high, also showed a worried expression on his face. However, it was precisely because of Broken Bee's loss of consciousness that she revealed a flaw. At this time, how can I miss the good luck? Such a good opportunity is to kick the Broken Bee out. After kicking the Broken Bee, Geo said, What? Are you worried about your subordinate's life? In fact, even if you die, you two are on the road together. And the Broken Bee that was kicked, also slowly stood out from the pit, and then looked at Geo with sharp eyes. The death of that guy is not worthy of my attention at all. But are you sure? Can you really kill me? Geo was there for a moment. He didn't expect that he had already taken over, and he had the absolute upper hand. However, the Shinigami in front of him is so arrogant that he looks down on people. Geo didn't know, where did this Broken Bee's confidence come from? Of course Geo also knew that this Broken Bee still retained his strength and did not go all out. But Geo himself, why not, still has a trick. You fellow, who brought you such great self-confidence? It seems that I have to come and teach you how to do it. You know, in the face of absolute strength, arrogance and confidence are simply worthless and the most ridiculous thing. But at this time, the Broken Bee was there, his eyes narrowed slightly, and then looked at Geo, nodded and said. This sentence, I think so, you are right, I totally agree with your point of view. But Shattered Bee attacked Geo while talking. From the beginning, the Broken Bee has been passively defending. But there has never been an opportunity to take the initiative to attack. This time, the Broken Bee took the initiative to attack, but instead made G beat, there was a little surprised. However, when Geo saw that the speed of Broken Bee was still the same as before, a very contemptuous expression appeared on his face. At this time, among the ruins, Yamada stood up, but he looked at Nigel, who was standing on the ruins with cold eyes. You guy, you have been running rampant these days and have been chasing me. I didn't play with you seriously, but you still want my life. It seems that I also have to fight against you seriously. And seeing the big 640 Yamada with a very serious expression, Nigel was there, and he believed it. At this time, Nigel was still waiting for the next attack from Yamada. Nigel is still a little afraid of Yamada's ability. Because, at this time, the Yamada still has not yet completely liberated the weapons. Nigel looked at Yamada with a serious expression. He really thought that Yamada's next attack would be to go all out. But who knows, before Nigel was fully guarded, but Yamada was too big, he turned around and ran away. Nigel, too, was suddenly dumbfounded. At this time, Nigel had no idea that this great Yamada would actually run away, and there was no upper limit to the great Yamada's ability to escape. Nigel now understands that the posture that Yamada had just now was nothing more than a bluff. However, it is obvious that Yamada, the previous attack, was also so fierce. Chapter 330, Big Yamada Play Replay. Broken Bee prepares for second level kill. Advertise here. This also made Nigel, really the monk of Zhong could not touch his head. And now Nigel really has something, but he can't figure out how capable this big Yamada really is. I don't even know, this big Yamada, did he act there on purpose? Or he could only have the ability to attack once. Although Nigel couldn't guess that Yamada was coming, Nigel absolutely couldn't allow Yamada to run away. So Nigel immediately caught up again. But the final result is surprisingly similar, as if playing a replay. At this time, Yamada still used that grotesque running method to avoid Nigel's attack. However, Nigel's attack was much tougher than before. However, what made Nigel quite surprised was that he was attacking now. It is still impossible to completely hit Yamada's body. Not to mention, it will cause fatal injuries to Yamada. At this time, the broken bee in the sky saw that Yamada was okay and was also there, and he was a little relieved. When Gio saw Broken Bee's expression at this time, he said there again, "It seems that although you are talking and don't care about the life and death of your subordinates, you are always worried about it in your heart. You are such a weird fellow. Why can't you speak your mind and show it? You have to pretend to be so ruthless." However, Broken Bee was still there, looking at Jiu blankly and said, "For you masks, this kind of emotion is of course you and you can't understand it." The words of Broken Bee seemed to sting, and Ji beat his mind. I saw that Jiu's expression was also there at this time, and gradually became a little distorted. It seems that at this time, Jiu's anger has reached the extreme. At this time, Gio had changed again. "You guy is really annoying. I don't want to fight with you anymore and keep fighting like this. Just let this trick of mine end your life. And what I want to tell you is that my arms release this time is what I really look like." I saw that the auspicious battle at this time also began to change. The wrist sword in Gio's hand also began to stretch, turning into a big sword. And the braid of the hair behind Gio also became longer. Not only that, even Gio's physique has become a lot more burly, and his muscles are present in his body, and they are also showing up. Broken Bee looked at Gio in front of him, and after changing again, Broken Bee finally got serious. In the previous time, the change of Gio had already caused absolute suppression to the Broken Bee in terms of speed. And now, Gio's figure has also become like this. It seems that in terms of speed, if there is any improvement, then she is really a bit dangerous. Therefore, Shattered Bee must now be fully absorbed in dealing with the Arankar in front of him. Before the Broken Bee, he just wanted to test it out. After Arankar returned to the blade, how strong is it? And now, Broken Bee has gradually found out their strength. Therefore, the current Broken Bee no longer plans to retain its own strength. Therefore, Broken Bee also decided, ready to perform a second-level killer trick. And Jiu looked at Broken Bee and started to get serious, but he was there and laughed loudly. "Ha ha 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 ha. You are only getting serious now. Is it too late? When I became this form, I had already announced the end of your life." However, the Broken Bee was there, watching coldly, and the big change in front of him said, "You are too much nonsense." Obviously, this sentence of Broken Bee was even more, and completely angered Jiu. I saw that at this time, Jiu, without saying anything, raised his big sword and slaughtered the Broken Bee. Jiu's great sword also immediately ran into the bee sting in Broken Bee's hand. Oh, feeling the tremendous power of Jiu, the Broken Bee was cut and flew out immediately. At this time, Jiu's figure flashed, followed the shadow, and soon came to the front of Broken Bee. I saw that Jiu's great sword was slashing towards the Broken Bee again. At this time, the king's Broken Bee, there is no more chance to avoid it, you can only rely on the bee sting in your hand to resist Jiu's big sword. At this time, the power of Jiu's great sword was too huge and incomparable. And every time the Broken Bee resists, it will be knocked out again. At this time, the Broken Bee, it can be said that it has no power to fight back. At this time, Yamada, who was underground, was the same, running away frantically and shouting. However, Nigel was soon also caught, and Nigel finally caught him. I saw that Nigel pinched Yamada by the nose and lifted Yamada up. But Yamada, who was there, shouted loudly, "It hurts.